Mom took my sister and me to buy lucky spiritual pets. I immediately fell for Jojo the snake. My sister thought snakes were scary and high maintenance, so she picked the easiest pet, a loach. Hearing that loaches take a whole year to bond with owners, my sister doted on it meticulously, but the loach died within half a year. After I got Jojo the snake, I landed a job at a multinational and won millions in the lottery. My sister went green with envy. Claiming the snake devoured the loach's luck at my bidding, she caught me off guard and pushed me into the moat. When we were both reborn, my younger sister rushed to claim Jojo the serpent. Little did she know, serpents are creatures of Yin energy. They choose their masters, never the other way around. Forcing its allegiance will only bring calamity upon you. Mom, I want this Jojo snake. The bone-chilling cold from the river water had just subsided when I opened my eyes to see my little sister grabbing Jojo Snake's cage directly. She clung to it tightly, as if afraid I'd snatch it from her. Mom frowned. Zara, aren't you terrified of snakes? They're dangerous and could bite. Pick something safer. Even the spirit pet vendor chimed in. Miss, this serpent isn't meant for you. Choose a loach instead. They're fallen dragons that can transfer their unused fortune to you once bonded. My sister's face darkened. You swindler, think I don't know better. Loaches carry dragon luck but aren't true dragons. Snakes are reincarnated celestial dragons. I'm choosing the snake. Well-meant advice only earned undeserved scolding. The master's face darkened before falling into complete silence. Mom always favored my younger sister. Seeing her choose the snake, she simply nudged me to hurry up with my selection so we could go home. As I stood there hesitating over the array of spirit creatures scattered across the floor, my sister shoved the loach container into my hands. Just take the loach, sis. It's no dragon, but it's more than good enough for you. I knew it. She'd been reborn too. My twin sister and I kept hitting dead ends in our job hunt at 24/1. Mom brought us here to choose spirit pets after hearing they could alter one's fortune. In our past life, my sister took the mystic's advice and picked a loach. Obsessed with changing her fate through loach farming, she recited Diamond Sutra to them daily and fed them the most expensive ingredients money could buy. Yet within half a year, all her loaches died. Within a month, her sister got into a car accident, was scammed out of money, and nearly assaulted by a homeless man. Meanwhile, after just 6 months of keeping my pet snake Jojo, nothing but good fortune came my way. I hit the jackpot with a scratch-off ticket. Landed my dream job. Life was smooth sailing. My younger sister grew jealous and lured me to the riverbank, then pushed me in when I least expected it. I drowned in that river. I tried to speak up, but Mom just paid without a word. She dragged both of us out the door. My little sister kept giggling while hugging the Jojo plush snake in the car, then suddenly shot me a smug look. Sis, they say this loach is really special. I'm letting you have it, when you get rich and powerful someday. Don't forget who gave it to you. Had I not been reborn, I might have actually believed her sincerity. I know full well what venomous thoughts lurk beneath my sister's saccharine smile. Should I ever rise in rank and fortune, she'd be the first to slit my throat. Watching the drowsy white serpent coiled in her arms, I let out a derisive chuckle. Little does she know serpents carry dark energy and bloodlust, far trickier to rear than loaches. The crucial thing is, mystical snakes always choose their masters by seeking them out willingly. Trying to claim ownership by simply purchasing one will only bring about dire consequences. Besides, what my sister acquired was no ordinary serpent, it was a python, the kind that keeps growing bigger. The moment we got home, my little sister took the snake straight to her room. The neighborhood committee warned my mom about recent burglaries in our complex and advised keeping valuables secure. I found an old fish tank and put the loaches inside. To be honest, I'm not really superstitious about the idea of spiritual pets changing one's fortune, but in my past life, my luck genuinely started turning around after adopting Jojo. Following the master's advice, I began keeping a loach named Nini, feeding it daily and reciting Diamond Sutra passages to it each night. I placed a broken eggshell in its tank, which it seemed to really enjoy. Looks like it's using that eggshell as its nest. But it kept avoiding me. After a week of feeding, it actually responded when I called. Other than that, I still went out every day. I told my family I was job hunting, but in reality, I spent all my time studying at the library. In my past life, I searched for jobs for 6 months before finally landing an interview with a foreign company. That company was incredibly prestigious in our area. Getting in was like winning the lottery, but after joining, I realized the boss didn't hire me for my skills. He was obsessed with my birth chart. He wants me to go in and perform disaster relief rituals for him. So in this lifetime, I decided to try for a government position. After all, nobody wants to die for someone else without good reason. My sister still refuses to leave the house, spending her days trying to change her fate by raising spirit familiars. Mom asked me to talk some sense into my sister. In my past life, I followed Mom's advice. I told my sister that keeping spiritual pets might bring luck, but finding a job still required her own effort. She should at least go out and submit some resumes. Back then, my sister actually listened to me. On the very day she went out to submit resumes, her Loach died. From that day on, my younger sister claimed my JoJo killed her Loach, accusing me of trying to steal her good fortune. Until I unexpectedly won a huge prize and got hired by a foreign company, consumed by jealousy. My sister ultimately murdered me. After my sister pushed me into the river, I saw my mother arrive at the scene. Seeing me barely alive, my mother didn't call the police but instead rushed my sister back home. When my body was recovered from the water, my mother had me cremated immediately. She told everyone I'd accidentally fallen into the river. The thought sent chills down my spine. Raising a spirit companion requires sincerity. I told Mom, little sister's approach is actually correct. If I wouldn't speak up, Mom certainly wouldn't dare confront my sister. We had no choice but to indulge her in worshipping that snake like some ancestral deity. She not only built it an extravagant cage, cleaning it daily and reciting Tao Te Ching to the serpent thrice a day, but even made Mom hunt newborn field mice in the countryside for its meals. This JoJo is such a picky eater, won't touch lab-raised mice, only wants wild-caught ones. And they've gotta be those barely furred baby mice. Once when Mom was cleaning JoJo's cage in my sister's room, the snake nearly took a snap at her. Instead of blaming JoJo the snake, my sister blamed Mom for disturbing its meditation. After that, even fewer people were willing to deal with the matter. In the evening, my sister came to my room to get the hairdryer. She happened to catch me reading the Diamond Sutra to Nini. She scoffed, "Seriously, sis? You actually believe in that Nini Loach nonsense?" The internet says people who think Loaches recognize owners are the same suckers who fall for senior citizen health scams. Just feed it to my snake already. As she spoke, Nini in the tank seemed visibly displeased. It started darting back and forth in the tank as if trying to leap out. I murmured softly, "Easy there, Nini." At the sound of my voice, Nini actually stopped and ignored my sister, curling up instead in her favorite eggshell. I chuckled. She's quite perceptive, isn't she? My sister's eyes widened in surprise, too. The Loaches she'd raised in her past life had never obeyed her like this. My sister's face darkened as she sneered. "So what if it's obedient? The white serpent will still devour the Loach's fortune." I chuckled. "Just keeping it for fun. You don't actually believe in that superstition, do you?" I laughed, and my sister joined in, only her laughter carried an eerie quality. Smiling lips masking ice-cold eyes. My younger sister whispered something as we parted. What if the Loach recognizes its master? With my spirit serpent here, it can't influence any fortunes. The very next day after she said that, I hit the jackpot. I just finished my civil service exam that morning when Mom yanked my ear the moment I got home. "Look at you, Ren, lazing around at home for half a year without earning a dime, and now you have the nerve to splurge my money on this overpriced phone." My sister sat on the couch watching TV, completely indifferent as Mom hit me. I said, "I didn't buy any phone." Still lying through your teeth, Mom released her grip and pulled out a delivery box containing the latest iPhone. "Then explain this." "It was delivered right to our doorstep." Rubbing my ear, I said, "I won this in a live stream giveaway." As I spoke, I noticed my sister's hand pause briefly before she frowned. Mom stopped being angry when she heard it wasn't bought, though she remained skeptical. "Really? With your terrible luck?" "My bad luck is practically legendary. Missed the elite high school class by 1 point, fell short of a top-tier university by 1 mark, and the company that offered me a job went under before I even started. That's why my mom always says my rotten luck rubs off on my little sister. Even the spirit pet was bought for her sake. If it weren't for Mom's chronic back pain from an old injury that makes housework difficult, she would have kicked this troublemaker out long ago. It's true. I showed the screenshot. Keeping Loaches really brings good luck. Let's buy more from that master. Mom laughed. This master didn't lie after all. Give your phone to your sister, she's due for an upgrade anyway. I'll take her old one, and you can have mine. That's how phone hand-me-downs always work in our family. I actually fought with Mom about this before. It's not fair. Why does my sister always get the latest phone while I'm stuck with a hand-me-down 2 generations old? Or rather, I've been keeping score on this since childhood. We're both Mom's daughters, so why does she always favor my sister? Whenever I bring it up, Mom just says, "My money, my rules. If you think it's unfair, sue me." It wasn't until later that I realized why Mom never really liked me. When my parents divorced, 3-year-old me blurted out, "I want to stay with Dad." She took it as betrayal, like I was some ungrateful child who'd never return her love. This time, I chose not to argue with her about it. Just said casually, "Then give it to Zara." "I won 2 anyway." "2, you hit the jackpot," Mom exclaimed. At that moment, my sister slammed the remote control onto the floor. Mom and I turned to look, only to see my sister's gloomy expression. Mom asked, "Zara, what's wrong?" My sister forced a smile. "Nothing. Just wanted to ask how you raised that Loach. It's already changing your fortune so quickly." I knew exactly why my sister was upset. After all, in my past life, I never won any lucky draws. Maybe sincerity moves the gods, I bluffed. I even sleep hugging the tank at night. If it didn't need water to survive, I'd dive right into sleep with it. My mother gave me the strangest look and snapped, "You're such a creep." Whether I'm a creep or not doesn't matter. What matters is that my sister actually bought it. Early the next morning, my mom went to wake my sister up. The moment she entered the room, a piercing shriek rang out. I rushed over to find my sister lying in bed with Jojo coiled around her left leg, its crimson forked tongue flickering. In just a month, Jojo had doubled in size, now larger than an average snake. The snake grew thicker than my arm from being fed like royalty every day. There were 2 fang marks on my sister's thigh, clearly from a snake bite. My mother looked horrified. "Zara, why on earth are you staying with it?" My sister sat up and reached out to stroke the snake's head. "What's all the yelling about? You're scaring my precious snake," Mom said. "Can't you see it bit you? Get up now. I'm taking you to the hospital for a rabies shot." My sister protested. "It wasn't biting me, it was giving me kisses, just a little scratch, and our snake is perfectly clean." Mom panicked and reached up to grab my sister's hand. "It eats sewer rats every day, who knows how many viruses it's carrying." Her younger sister threw a pillow at her. "Nobody gets to badmouth my precious snake. Get out." Not only did the sister refuse to go to the hospital, she even brought the snake to the dinner table. She said she'd eat and sleep with the pet snake from now on. Seeing Jojo on the table made my mom's hair stand on end, but remembering how hysterical my sister was this morning, she didn't dare intervene. After dinner, Mom asked me to talk to my sister again. I was the one who suggested keeping spirit pets. "But your sister's gone completely obsessive. She'll have a breakdown at this rate. Talk some sense into her, just raise them normally without all these theatrics." I shook my head. "She's doing it right. If Nini didn't need to stay in water, I'd do the same." Mom froze for a moment before delivering the perfect verdict. "You're both insane," though she soon changed her mind. A month later, I passed the civil service written exam with flying colors and advanced to the interview stage. When Mom heard the news, she was stunned. "You've really hit the jackpot this time." "But why is it only your luck that's changed? Zara still can't land a job." My younger sister was standing right there when she said it. Her eyes dimmed slightly. I chuckled lightly. "Maybe Zara's spirit serpent hasn't shown its true power yet." With a sharp crack, my younger sister smashed the glass onto the floor. "Don't get cocky, Ren. A stroke of beginner's luck isn't worth gloating over. Remember, even snakes eat loaches." I replied, "Any luck is better than none at all." That remark really struck a chord with my sister, so after I returned from my civil service exam interview that day, there was Jojo, who should have been in my sister's room, curled up at the bottom of the tank. Nini was floating belly up on the water's surface. I let out a heartbroken cry. "Nini," my younger sister sauntered over and gasped. "Sorry sis, I just wanted Snakey to play with Nini for a bit, never thought he'd bite her to death." Her lips formed an apology, but her face showed no remorse. I glared at her in fury. "Did you do this on purpose? You're trying to sever my life force. Don't talk nonsense. Your Nini was just too fragile." My sister smirked as she approached my tank. With an outstretched arm, the white serpent coiled around her limb. "You'd better rush your Nini to the hospital, sister. There might still be time to save it." My sister strode away with the white serpent in tow. As I left my room, I saw the white serpent coiled tightly around my sister's shoulder, its unblinking gaze fixed on her while flicking a blood-red forked tongue. That predatory stare, like a hunter eyeing its prey. I scooped Nini out of the tank. I was about to bury it, but the moment I touched it, I felt something move in my palm. I cried out joyfully, "Nini, you're alive." I placed it back into the tank. Nini nudged my palm again, as if comforting me. Even if Nini survived, I couldn't keep her anymore. My sister was determined to kill. If she failed this time, she'd try again. Using burial as an excuse, I took Nini to a lakeside. When I placed her in the water, Nini refused to leave. It stared at me from the water. For a fleeting moment, I sensed something almost sentient in its gaze. I crouched down and whispered, "Nini, I'm not abandoning you. It's just, I can't protect you right now. You'll be freer here. If you truly are a fallen dragon, come find me when this is all over." After half a minute, Nini seemed to understand my words, turned and burrowed into the mud. I felt down for days after returning home. My good luck seemed to vanish from that day onward. I missed passing by just 1 point again. I never won any giveaways in live streams again. Lost my gold necklace too. That necklace was a gift from my grandma when I got into college. My sister and I each got one. At current gold prices, it could fetch about 15 grand. My mom wanted to trade my gold necklace for 2 rings that day, but she couldn't find it anywhere in my room. After some deduction, we realized it was probably stolen by a thief. Mom poked my head with her finger. "You should have hidden it better. Our family's lost the most valuables in this whole building. What terrible luck," I pouted. It's all Zara's fault for killing Nini. Mom, can you buy me another one? 3. Mom gave me a strange look. How dare you mention those Loaches? If it weren't for your pet Loaches draining your sister's snake spirit fortune, would she still be this unlucky? Listen here, if you don't recover that 15 grand, you're paying rent starting next month. To get back the 15,000, I went to a lottery shop and bought 10 scratch-off tickets. When my sister woke up, I was scratching the last lottery ticket. She asked me, "What are you doing?" The JoJo snake on her shoulder has gotten huge, must be nearly 1.7 meters by now. Sometimes I wonder if that JoJo snake is some kind of demon, growing this fast. I scowled and said, "I was just trying to make some money. It's all your fault. If you hadn't killed my Nini, I wouldn't be broke right now." My sister fell into thoughtful silence for a few seconds after hearing me. Then an unusual glint flashed in her eyes as she swiftly locked JoJo inside the room. Against all expectations, she stepped out. An hour later, my sister came running back, beaming with joy. I told Mom, I won the lottery, 10 million yuan. From the moment my sister hit the jackpot, her luck truly turned around. Just like in my past life, she soon received a call from a foreign company. They invited her to interview for the executive assistant position. After joining, my sister stood out among 100 candidates and smoothly landed the position as the boss's secretary, not to mention the top-tier benefits package. Her monthly salary alone reached a staggering 20 grand, but the day before she was supposed to start, she suddenly changed her mind. With this much money and my precious snake, why bother working? My sister scoffed. Besides, who's gonna take care of JoJo if I'm at the office all day? Mom obviously didn't want my sister to keep staying home devoting herself entirely to serving JoJo Snake. She told my sister this opportunity was a gift from JoJo Snake, and refusing it would be ungrateful to JoJo's kindness. My sister was persuaded, especially remembering how I'd left JoJo Snake home alone when I started working in our past life. After much hesitation, my sister went to the company. On her first day at work, my sister proudly announced at dinner, "I think our boss has a thing for me." Mom asked, "What makes you say that?" She explained that even though she's the boss's secretary, she doesn't have to do anything at the company, just show up on time. Her coworkers also flatter her like she's already the boss's wife. The boss is even more impressive. You know what? He personally drove me home today. My sister beamed like a blooming flower. He wouldn't let me sit in the passenger seat, insisted I sit right beside him. Doesn't that mean something? My sister vividly recounted her extraordinary encounter at the company. Mom said she was reading too much into it. My sister shook her head firmly. "No, I can feel it. Maybe this is the romantic luck my snake charm brought me." I knew my sister was telling the truth, because I'd experienced the same thing in my past life, just as she said. Everyone from coworkers to the boss gave me special treatment, but I couldn't accept it as easily as she did, at the time. I found such kindness utterly hypocritical, so I kept my guard up and did some digging. Turns out that boss was extremely superstitious. He hired secretaries based solely on their birth charts, not skills. This particular hire was meant to ward off his bad luck. Rumor has it the boss keeps a fortune teller at home, who warned he's in for a rough year ahead. To break the curse, they need someone with compatible birth signs to take the fall for him. I couldn't get the specifics, but word is they're planning to stage some kind of disaster. After all, fabricating misfortune beats waiting for the real thing. After hearing that, I started considering quitting my job, but before I could resign, my sister ended up killing me. Seeing how smug she looks, she must be convinced it's all thanks to JoJo Snake's good luck. Well, we'll see about that. Is JoJo Snake more powerful, or is that master stronger? After this incident, the younger sister treated JoJo Snake even better. She practically worshipped it like a deity. The two of them grew much closer. JoJo the Snake sleeps in such a bizarre position, almost human-like. Every time I see this, it makes me sick to my stomach. With both wealth and romance flourishing, my sister's walking tall these days. My standing at home has become increasingly insignificant. Mom speaks to me with constant sarcasm every day, even threatening to kick me out of the house. She said, "Look at Zara, she's your age, but see how well she's doing, and then there's you, practically a beggar." Little did I expect, the moment Mom finished speaking, the phone suddenly rang. The voice on the other end told her something happened to her sister. Her sister was in a car accident. When Mom and I rushed to the hospital, the doctor told us the odds were grim. Even if she pulled through, the best outcome would be a vegetative state. Against all odds, my sister miraculously survived, ending up with just spinal cord injuries. After regaining consciousness, she lost all mobility below the neck. The first thing my sister said when she woke up was, "Where's my snakey?" Mom sobbed bitterly. "How can you still care about that damned creature at a time like this? If it hadn't gotten you that lousy job, this terrible accident would never have happened." But my sister snapped back, "Don't talk nonsense. If Snakey hadn't protected me, I wouldn't have survived such a horrific crash." My sister looked like someone who'd narrowly escaped death. Little did she know, There were 3 people in that car. When that massive truck came barreling in, she was the only one who got hurt. The other 2 walked away without a scratch. The truck driver turned himself in right after the crash and voluntarily covered hundreds of thousands in medical bills. Any reasonably sane person would find this situation suspicious. But before my sister and mother could make sense of it all, they were quickly dazzled by money. When they learned my sister had woken up, her company's boss came to visit. He expressed deep sorrow. Then his assistant produced a check. The assistant explained that since my sister was accompanying the boss to the construction site, it counted as a work-related injury, out of humanitarian considerations. The company compensated her with $20 million. My mother was initially furious and ready to confront the boss, but the sight of that $20 million instantly turned her frown upside down. With this $20 million added, my sister now has a total of $30 million. She's convinced all $30 million came from Snake Treasure's financial blessings. Even being completely paralyzed now doesn't seem like a big deal to her. Snake Baby will cure me anyway. After the doctor suggested my sister should go to a rehabilitation hospital, she insisted on going straight home. Mom urged her to follow the doctor's advice. Who needs rehab hospitals? Snake Baby is my rehabilitation doctor. The moment Jojo the snake saw my sister after returning home, it lunged forward and licked her face with its flickering tongue. Jojo had grown enormous. When fully stretched out, it was longer than my sister's entire body. Strangely enough, Jojo stopped eating altogether from the day my sister was discharged from the hospital. My mom marveled at how human-like the snake's behavior was, clinging to my sister all day and even refusing meals out of distress after witnessing her suffering. I chimed in, yeah, my sister's really tamed the snake, but it reminded me of a creepy fact I'd read. When a pet python stops eating and coiling, stretching straight beside you instead, it's actually sizing you up to see if you'd fit down its throat. Clearly, my sister hadn't heard that unsettling trivia. She kept sharing meals and a blanket with Jojo the snake like nothing was wrong. Every time I meet Jojo the snake's gaze, I feel like it's eyeing its prey, just as expected. In the early hours of one morning, I heard my sister let out a piercing scream. When I rushed over, Jojo the snake lay on the ground with its belly grotesquely swollen, as if it had swallowed a whole person. My sister turned pale. Sis, Snakey ate Mom. Call the police. Hearing this, I immediately grabbed my phone. Before the call connected, my sister suddenly cried out, "Don't call the police." The shout startled me so badly I dropped my phone. I stared at her. Are you insane? Mom got eaten. That snake kills people. My precious snake will die. No police, period. After a moment's thought, I turned to the kitchen and grabbed a cleaver. I've heard when a snake eats someone, the person doesn't die immediately. I'll cut its belly open now and save Mom. My little sister screamed again. No, you can't. I won't let you hurt Snakey. The little sister shrieking agitated Jojo the snake on the floor. Suddenly, with some inexplicable burst of energy, it crawled to the window and slithered right out. Jojo the snake escaped. My sister was more hysterical than if Mom had died, shrieking at me to retrieve her precious Jojo. If you don't find my Snake Baby, you'll pay for this. Go now. My sister rushed me out the door. I was back home before noon. When I pushed the door open, she jerked her head up. Seeing nothing behind me, she yelled, "Where's my snake? I told you to find it. Why are you back alone?" I asked her. Mom's dead. Don't you feel anything at all? The younger sister frowned. Why feel sorry for that woman's death? If she hadn't disturbed Jojo's meditation, Jojo would never have eaten her. Did you hear that? Mom, this is the perfect daughter you see. How pathetic, I sneered. You know what? Jojo was actually going to eat you. I just checked the surveillance footage. Turns out Jojo the snake was trying to eat my sister when Mom walked in. Seeing this, she immediately lunged at Jojo, only for the snake to suddenly turn and bare its fangs at her. It swallowed the person whole. My sister froze, her face turning pale instantly. No way, that's impossible. Jojo chose me as its master. We eat and sleep together. Why would it want to devour me? Then, as if struck by sudden realization, she screamed, "It's you. You must have done something. You're jealous because Jojo brought me luck this lifetime, not you, so you sabotaged my fortune. That's why this happened. Ren, you venomous witch." The moment she finished cursing, my slap landed across her face. My sister stared at me in disbelief. "How dare you hit me? Why wouldn't I?" I chuckled darkly. "You dared to kill me. What's stopping me from hitting you?" Her eyes widened like saucers at my words. You've been reborn too, right? I told her. So do you get it now? There's no such thing as lucky charms changing your fate. Did you really think good fortune would just fall into your lap without lifting a finger? I prepped those scratch-off tickets myself. Doesn't it strike you as odd that you got hired by that foreign company? You never even submitted a resume. How would they have gotten your number? winning phones and live streams, hitting the jackpot on scratch cards. It was all my doing. I sold my gold necklace to buy this phone, just to convince my sister that spirit pets can change fortunes, otherwise she'd never let Jojo out of that cage. I bought the whole stack of scratch-offs first. In my past life, I'd purchased that same batch, so I knew exactly which ticket held the winning number. I pulled out the winning ticket from memory and handed the shopkeeper $3,000. Told him if any girl who looked like me came to buy, he absolutely had to sell her that specific one. My sister finally started thinking about it. So you're the one who submitted my resume? I replied, exactly. Did you really think the boss fancied you? He just needed someone whose astrological signs align with his to take the fall for him. I'm sure my clever sister will figure everything out. I'm dead. We're identical twins with matching birth charts. If that foreign company hired me for astrological compatibility, they'd naturally hire her too, for, if they wanted her to avert disaster, of course they'd compensate her, yet she still believed it was the white snake that brought her this windfall. Utterly ridiculous. The moment I'm reborn, I'll make sure she dies. In a society governed by law, I could only let her self-destruct. The scratch-off lottery jackpot has been deposited, and the company's $20 million compensation is also secured. Mom's dead. If my sister dies too, all this money will be mine alone. The murderous glint in my eyes made my sister's teeth chatter uncontrollably. She completely broke down and started pleading. Sis, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been jealous of you in our past life. Please don't kill me. Look at me now. I'm no threat to you anymore. She even began confessing. I know you resent Mom for favoring me, but how is that my fault? It was all Mom's doing. Look at what I've become. I might as well be dead already. Please forgive me. Don't kill me. I shook my head. Zara, I'm disgusted by your words. You were the primary beneficiary of Mom's favoritism, yet you claim it's not your fault, and you're mistaken. I won't kill you. Murder is illegal. Hearing this, my sister's eyes lit up. It was as if she'd found a new lease on life. The next instant, I snapped my fingers. A hulking figure appeared in the doorway. Jojo crawled over and affectionately nuzzled against my palm. Its belly had flattened completely. Witnessing this, my sister's eyes shifted from delight to terror. How? Why would Jojo recognize you? You said spirit pet transference doesn't even exist in this world, so why? I didn't answer her question. Truth be told, I couldn't explain why everything went so smoothly, whether it was my sister's naivety or the spirit beast secretly assisting me. As for why Jojo the snake recognized me, it's simply because I've been taking care of him while my sister was hospitalized, just like in our past life. Jojo clung to me with unusual affection. I waved gently. Jojo climbed onto the bed with practiced ease, wrapping his tail around his little sister just like before. Jojo, Jojo, let me go. I'm your owner. The little sister kept calling his name. His face turned from red to purple, then finally pale. After my sister stopped breathing, Jojo's mouth gaped wide. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. 2 days later, the police finally found my sister and mother's remains on the mountain. They were swallowed and regurgitated by Jojo the snake, their bodies half dissolved by stomach acid. Jojo the snake couldn't be found. The officers said it probably slithered into the deep wilderness. My heart ached, but a single sharp question from the officer made my tears stop. You claimed your sister stopped you from calling the police, but she's paralyzed. How could she possibly prevent you? If you really wanted to report it, you could have just ignored her. I remained silent. Outside the police station, a street vendor was selling loaches. I walked over to look, and among the swarm of black loaches, one golden loach stood out strikingly. I recognized it at first glance. This is my Nini, and, story 2, before the spring festival, I received a rather substantial severance payment. I bought a large quantity of food ingredients and New Year's goods, planning to let my family have a happy and wonderful spring festival. However, my mother-in-law scolded me for being wasteful. And my husband also complained that I didn't understand how hard he worked to earn money. I had a big quarrel with them and planned to go back to my parents' home for the spring festival. Unexpectedly, there was a zombie outbreak, and I was trapped at home. Just as I was rejoiced that I had stocked up a lot of supplies, my mother-in-law and husband joined forces to push me out the door. My mother-in-law said viciously, "A hen that doesn't lay eggs should die as soon as possible. After the zombies are gone, my son can just marry a new wife and give me a grandson." My husband also had an indifferent expression and said, "It's not easy for my mother to raise me. The more mouths there are, the faster the food will be consumed. I can find another wife if I lose you, but I only have one mother. Don't blame me. I was eaten alive by zombies in despair, however. My mother-in-law and husband managed to survive until the arrival of the National Rescue by relying on the New Year's goods I bought. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day when I went to buy the New Year's goods. 1. Those who eat for free don't understand how hard it is to earn money. My son works so hard outside, and all the money he earns is spent by you alone, you wasteful thing. In our time, A little bit of oil could be used to stir-fry 3 pots of dishes. You bought so many things. Are you reincarnated from a glutton? When my mother-in-law Gabriella's sharp voice rang in my ears, I realized that I had been reborn. The company's performance was not good, and it closed down at the end of the year, but it gave me a considerable severance payment. I originally planned to buy more good dishes so that my family could have a prosperous spring festival happily, and I would look for a new job after the spring festival, unexpectedly. Since my mother-in-law learned that I was unemployed, her attitude towards me has been getting worse day by day. In my previous life, after my mother-in-law saw that I had bought so many things, she scolded me severely just like now. When my husband Thomas came back, he also sided with his mother and helped her complain about me, insisting that I return all the dishes. I was very unhappy about it. I used to earn the most in the family, and I wasn't going to stop looking for a job after the spring festival, so why did I become someone who ate for free? Moreover, the whole family ate the dishes. How could it be said that all the money was only spent by me? So I had a big quarrel with them and planned to go back to my parents' home for the spring festival. Unexpectedly, before I left, there was a global zombie outbreak, and we were trapped at home. I was still that there were enough supplies stocked at home, but my husband and mother-in-law actually joined forces to push me out the door. My mother-in-law said viciously, "A hen that doesn't lay eggs should die as soon as possible. After the zombies are gone, my son can marry a new wife and give me a grandson." My husband also had an indifferent expression and said, "It's not easy for my mother to raise me. The more mouths there are, the faster the food will be consumed. I can find another wife if I lose you, but I only have one mother. Don't blame me. I died in the midst of a horde of zombies filled with despair." My husband and mother-in-law, however, survived until the arrival of the National Rescue by relying on the things I bought. My mother-in-law's scolding continued. Hatred welled up in my heart, and I turned around and left with a large pile of vegetables in my hand. In this life, I want to see if these mother and son can still live to the end without the vegetables I stocked up, too. As soon as I opened the door, I found that Thomas had come back and was at the door. He glanced at the things in my hand and asked my mother-in-law what was wrong. My mother-in-law immediately started shouting, "Look at the good wife you married. She gives us a cold shoulder after just a few words. You work so hard to earn money every day. Unlike some people who enjoy a good life and have a big temper, you can't even say a word to them. Your father passed away early, and I'm old and useless. I just want to lighten your burden." As my mother-in-law spoke, her eyes turned red, and she began to wipe away her tears. My husband frowned and accused me while changing his shoes. "Mom is old, and it's not easy for her to raise me alone. What's wrong with you as a daughter-in-law?" Letting her say a few words. "Don't." Before he could finish his sentence, I threw down the vegetables and slapped him hard in the face. The clear sound of the slap resounded throughout the living room, and both Thomas and Gabriella were stunned. I pointed at his nose and said, "Thomas, whoever's mother has it hard should make up for it. Don't talk nonsense to me here. Let me ask you, who bought the car in the family, who paid the mortgage, and who bought your mother's massage chair? With the little money you earn, it's already good if you don't starve to death. Have you forgotten all about it after working a few more days?" Before I lost my job, Thomas was quite obedient to me. Even if my mother-in-law was in the wrong, he would mediate between us, and life was still quite smooth. Unexpectedly, as soon as I lost my job, this mother and son showed their true colors. Thomas was stunned by my slap. He wasn't a tough person either, and he immediately subconsciously started to explain. I definitely didn't listen. I turned to look at my mother-in-law and said, "You old shrew, if you can't stand your son getting married so much, then you can just live with your son from now on. Try your best to have a big fat grandson." After saying that, I picked up the vegetables and slammed the door behind me. Inside the house behind me, Gabriella's curses and cries resounded. I didn't have the time to pay attention to them. There were still 8 hours before the zombie outbreak, and I had to hurry up. In this life, I have to live well. 3. Fortunately, the vegetables I carried home were just a small part. The majority of the rest would be delivered to my home later by someone. I called and told the delivery person to delay the delivery and that the address had changed. I went through all the apocalyptic novels I had read before in my mind. I immediately called my parents in the countryside and told them that there was a new type of influenza virus spreading recently. I have a client with a powerful background who said that we need to stay home in isolation again recently, so I asked them to stock up more supplies. The situation is different from the past. They must also reinforce the original courtyard wall to prevent people with bad intentions from coveting it. Fortunately, my parents have always believed what I said. They repeatedly assured me that they would buy more things and not go out again, and then I felt relieved. Moreover, I briefly described the faces of Gabriella and Thomas, the mother and son, and told my parents not to believe any of their words and not to answer their calls. I even suggested that they block them. Then I quickly opened the rental housing app and prepared to rent a large penthouse on the top floor of a community away from the urban area. Fortunately, the real estate agent was reliable and quickly found a new community with few people. There were not many residents living in it. The homeowner was a painter. He liked such a quiet and secluded environment. However, he went abroad not long after he bought the house and decorated it. I didn't hesitate to sign the contract and then told the delivery person a nearby address. I planned to drive and pick up the vegetables myself when they arrived later. After all, the most terrifying thing in the apocalypse is people's hearts. It's better to be more cautious and not let others know that I have stocked up so many supplies. Then I immediately called and offered 3 times the price to replace all the doors and windows of the house. The doors should be of the bank vault level, and the windows should also be replaced with bulletproof glass. Then I would stick one-way film on the glass. The workers were very quick. They were just curious about why I wanted to do this. I casually made up a story and said that a year ago, I was robbed in my home, and my mother-in-law and husband were stabbed to death like honeycombs. Under the huge shock, I not only suffered from paranoid delusions of persecution but also bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Many of the surrounding neighbors had been accidentally injured by me. I had no other choice but to find such a place. It was to protect myself and also to protect others. After hearing this, the workers didn't say anything and just accelerated their work speed, while keeping an eye on the renovation. I also placed many orders for things online through express delivery services, and they were all delivered to a place 3 kilometers away from the community. I don't know if it was the power of money or the effect of my made-up story, but the workers quickly finished the installation. Fortunately, the original owner of this house liked quietness, and the sound insulation of the house was very good. Otherwise, I would have to spend time installing sound insulation cotton. And I'm afraid it would be too late. Before leaving, I still felt a bit reluctant and reminded the workers that I heard there were a lot of people catching a cold recently, and it would be better for them to go home early and buy more things. It's not that I'm cold-hearted. When the order in the apocalypse collapses, the ugliness of human nature will be completely exposed. I'm not a savior, and I can only manage to protect myself. When the house was renovated, the supplies had already been delivered to the place I specified. I first drove out to buy other things and planned to bring the things back when it got dark. At the wholesale market, I bought 200 gin of flour, 200 gin of rice, and 50 gin each of various fresh fruits and vegetables. I also bought 300 gin each of dehydrated foods like dried kidney beans, dried bamboo shoots, and dried radishes that could be preserved for a long time. When the fresh fruits and vegetables were all eaten up, I could still soak the dried kidney beans and eat them. After buying the staple foods, fruits, and vegetables, I went to buy seasonings such as salt, oil, 13 spice powder, light soy sauce, and dark soy sauce. Considering that there would be water and power outages in the apocalypse, I also bought a gas stove. I had already called to order barreled water. I also bought several huge buckets and planned to fill them with water after I got back. Then I would buy a water purifier. In case there was no water, it would be possible to purify rainwater or snow water. I also bought some seeds. When I went back later, I would dig some soil by the roadside and take it back. I remember that half a year after the outbreak of the apocalypse in my previous life, the National Rescue arrived. I have a small appetite, and with other things, if there are no accidents, it should be enough to last until the rescue arrives. However, for the sake of safety, in the end, I also bought some canned foods and compressed biscuits. They have a long shelf life and are easy to preserve. This is the final guarantee. If all the other things are eaten up, I can still survive for a long time relying on these compressed biscuits. I also went to a nearby hardware store to buy some self-defense items. Anyway, everyone bought a lot of things at the wholesale market, and my quantity was still relatively small. No one noticed anything unusual at all. I made trip after trip without stopping to transport these things back. Fortunately, the wholesale market wasn't far from the house I rented, so I didn't waste much time. After finishing all this, I went to a supermarket a bit farther away and bought a large quantity of toilet paper, sanitary napkins, disposable underwear, and other hygiene products. I also bought cold-proof items such as electric blankets, electric heaters, hand warmers, down jackets, cold-proof sleeping bags, warm patches, quilts, cotton socks, gloves, and cotton shoes. After thinking about it, I also bought a telescope. In my previous life, along with the outbreak of the zombies, the temperature also dropped sharply. Coupled with the water and power outages, a lot of people were frozen to death. These electric heating items I bought could be used for a while before the power outage. After the power outage, I would have to rely on physical means to keep warm. There was no other way. I had also considered installing solar panels, but I gave up on the idea after thinking about it. On the one hand, there wasn't enough time. On the other hand, installing this kind of thing required approval from relevant departments, which was simply not realistic. Moreover, even if I installed it, it would be too noticeable and easily expose me, and then I would be targeted by people with ulterior motives. Fortunately, this was a new community. I observed that the surveillance cameras in the underground garage weren't turned on at all. When I was moving the supplies just now, I chose an elevator, covered my face, and in a moment of determination, I directly damaged the surveillance camera inside. In this way, I didn't have to worry about the community security guard seeing that I was stockpiling supplies. After finishing all this, it got dark. There were still 3 hours before the arrival of the apocalypse, and I quickly went to move back the things that had just been delivered to the door. I lived on the 23rd floor. The address of the barreled water was filled in as the 15th floor downstairs, which was unoccupied and wouldn't expose my location. There were only a few households in this building. Considering the load-bearing problem and the fact that I had bought a water purifier, I didn't order a lot of barreled water. Instead of going to the 15th floor to move the water first, I took advantage of the last more than an hour to drive to a nearby pharmacy and buy a lot of daily necessary medicines. I also bought alcohol, gauze, iodine, and various vitamins. On the way back, I conveniently packed 2 portions of grilled cold noodles, spicy hot pot, 5 gin of spicy boneless chicken feet, and a large cup of double scoop ice cream black tea with tea jelly. The apocalypse was approaching, and I wanted to have a good meal for the last time. After I came back, there were still half an hour left. I took this time to move all the barreled water upstairs. After finishing everything, I took out the big lock I bought at the hardware store and locked the fire door. There was 1 elevator for each household here. After the power outage, the elevator would stop running, and the safety door was the only passage that could lead upstairs. In this way, I had 1 more layer of protection before entering the door. After thinking about it, I also moved the 2 fire extinguishers in the corridor into the house in case of a fire. After finishing all the things, I opened my phone and saw that it was 9:15 p.m. There were still 5 minutes before the zombie outbreak. I had only sent messages to communicate with my parents on the way. Now I called them one last time to confirm that all the things that should be bought had been bought, and the courtyard had also been simply reinforced. Only then did I feel relieved. By this time, I was too tired to have an appetite. I took a few bites casually, put the things on the coffee table, and lay on the sofa exhausted, with my whole head buzzing. But looking at the supplies all over the house, I felt an indescribable sense of steadiness and security in my heart. Just then, my phone rang. It was Thomas calling, for, as soon as I answered the phone, Thomas's deafening shout came out from the receiver. "Lauren, where the hell have you been? Who are you flirting with outside? Come back quickly. Mom and I have been hungry for a whole day, and you still haven't come back to cook. You don't have a job now. Do you really want to just mooch off us at home?" While Thomas was saying these words, there came the sound of Gabriella's instigation from the side. She whispered, "That's right, son, just say it like that. You're a big man. Are you really afraid of her?" After hearing this, I sneered and said, "Thomas, if you listen to your mother so much, then what's the point of getting married? It would be better if you and your mother digest each other internally and produce and sell yourselves, you idiot." I just happened to have installed a surveillance camera at home. I wanted to see what these 2 people would do after the zombie outbreak when they really had no supplies. Was the affection between the mother and son deeper, or was the inferiority of human nature more dominant? After scolding, I didn't hesitate to hang up the phone. Almost at the same time, a scream came from the open window. I immediately went over and closed the window, and then took out the telescope to observe. I saw that on the road outside the community, many cars had crashed into each other, causing a large chain reaction of rear-end collisions, and the cars were smoking. There were many people staggering and rushing towards the people next to them in an extremely strange and twisted posture. Their faces were ashen gray, with no black pupils at all. Their features were decaying, and pus and blood oozed from their bodies. As soon as they saw someone, they would bite. One of them tore off the thigh of a person beside them and started chewing it vigorously. Blood splattered everywhere. I nervously swallowed my saliva. The zombie outbreak had occurred. Even though I had witnessed it in my previous life, my stomach still churned, and I couldn't hold back the urge to vomit. I rushed to the bathroom and threw up. I wasn't sure if it was due to exhaustion, the fear from my past life, or the recent nausea, but I was shivering all over. I haphazardly wrapped myself in a quilt and lay down on the sofa. Before long, I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I realized that my head felt heavy and my whole body ached and was weak. I took my temperature with a thermometer, and as expected, I had a fever. I rummaged through a large pile of medicine, took out an ibuprofen tablet and swallowed it, and then drank a lot of hot water. After wrapping myself in a thick quilt, I leaned against the sofa and started looking at my phone. Apart from the messages from my parents asking about my safety and their missed calls, all the other messages were from Thomas. Lauren, where the hell have you gone? If you dare to fool around outside and cheat on me, if I find out, I'll beat you to death. Come back and apologize to my mom. You're so uneducated. Didn't your mother teach you to respect your elders? Mom and I are hungry. If you come back now and buy some ready-made food and 2 boxes of cherries to show your respect to Mom, I'll reluctantly forgive you. The last message was, damn it, what's going on outside? Lauren, where are the things you bought? Who let you take the things away? Are you trying to kill me and Mom on purpose? I read the messages but didn't reply. I opened my phone and sent messages to my parents to let them know I was safe, but Thomas and Gabriella kept bombarding my phone, so I directly set them to Do Not Disturb. There were surveillance cameras installed at home. I just opened the media app to check on the status of Gabriella and Thomas. There were piles of supplies beside the two of them, like a small hill, and Thomas was carefully distributing them. He said, Mom, we're safe now. If we're frugal with our food, we should be able to wait until the rescue arrives. Gabriella snorted coldly. That woman who can't have children is somewhat useful after all. She left us so much food. It's a good thing she's not here, otherwise, I'd throw her out to feed the zombies. It would be best if she died outside, then you could marry a new wife. Gabriella raised her chin, looking mean and sarcastic. I usually have the habit of stockpiling supplies. In this life, I didn't have the supplies transported to my house, but there were still quite a lot of things left at home. If we were thrifty, we could hold on for another month or two. I sneered as I looked at the surveillance footage. Just thinking about the scene in my previous life when I was pushed out the door by Thomas and Gabriella made a surge of hatred well up in my heart. I definitely won't let these two off so easily. I have a big gift in store for them, however. The time isn't right yet. 5. After a few hours, the screams of people had subsided a lot, and what could be heard more were the roars of the zombies. The trending topics on the phone had exploded. Seeing that they couldn't suppress the situation, the government simply announced the zombie outbreak and told everyone to stay in quarantine at home and wait for rescue. I put down my phone, picked up a pair of binoculars, and started observing. Our residential area has a low occupancy rate, and it's located in the suburbs, far away from the crowds. There aren't many zombies downstairs. However, on the road further away, dozens of zombies were wandering aimlessly after losing their human targets. Occasionally, a passing bird could catch their attention and cause a commotion. Just like in my previous life and in the Doomsday novels, zombies are attracted to light and are sensitive to sound. After observing for a while, I boiled some hot water and poured myself a cup. I also put the food that I didn't finish last night into the microwave to heat it up. In an instant, the room was filled with a delicious aroma. I was tired from yesterday and had sweated a lot due to my illness. Now my stomach was already growling. Looking at the spicy and sour boneless chicken feet, I couldn't resist the temptation. After having a good meal, I started organizing the supplies that I had stockpiled yesterday. After finishing the work, I put the previously prepared mud into flower pots or buckets, filling up anything that could hold it. Then I planted the seeds that I bought before, hoping that I might be able to have some fresh vegetables to eat. Moreover, after the doomsday arrived, outside the window was a scene of lifelessness, and the whole world was in a state of ruin. Having some fresh life around could also lift my spirits and give me something to look forward to. After finishing everything that I had planned to do last night, I felt hungry again. After thinking about it, I decided to make the noodles with thick gravy that I had always wanted to make but never had the time for. Out of boredom, I opened the surveillance camera to check on Thomas and Gabriella. They were just about to have their meal. I took out 4 eggs that I bought yesterday and 2 juicy tomatoes, to make the taste better. I also took out some fresh pork and 2 bunches of small green vegetables. I heated up some oil in the pan. With a sizzling sound, the aroma instantly filled the kitchen. Meanwhile, Gabriella reluctantly took out a pack of instant noodles, broke it into 4 pieces, and took out 2 of them. She put them into a large bowl respectively and then poured in 2 large bowls of water. When I brought out a large bowl of steaming noodles with tomato, egg, and green vegetable gravy, Gabriella and Thomas had already finished their meal. Thomas even poured some water into the bowl to rinse it and then drank the water with the remaining instant noodle crumbs. Gabriella said with a pained expression, "Thomas, if you're really hungry, eat more. Anyway, we still have a lot of food. Look, you've lost so much weight from hunger." As I ate the hot and fragrant noodles with thick gravy, I heard Thomas say, "Mom, what do you know? There are so many zombies outside. When will the national rescue arrive? If we tighten our belts now, we'll be able to live longer." Gabriella was so touched that tears welled up in her eyes. She kept praising Thomas for being smart and farsighted. She even wanted to give her instant noodle soup to Thomas to drink. After having a wonderful meal, I felt warm all over. I covered myself with a thick quilt and curled up on the sofa and fell asleep. This narrow space made me feel more secure. In this way, a week passed without any incident. Although the spring festival was approaching, some families had already run out of food. People in the homeowners group had started asking if anyone had supplies and they were willing to pay double the price to buy them, but there was no response in the group. With the arrival of the doomsday, supplies were life, and money was just a pile of waste paper. Of course, no one would share their supplies. Looking at the supplies that Thomas and Gabriella had barely touched due to their frugality, a smile slowly spread across my lips. Then I took out my phone and posted in the homeowners group, "I still have supplies at home. Anyone who doesn't have any can come to my house to get some. We're all in the same building. We should help each other and get through this difficult time." I also attached a photo of the supplies in my phone. The supplies in the photo were piled up like a small hill, making anyone who saw it envious. After I posted the message, the people in the group hadn't reacted yet, but Thomas and Gabriella erupted in anger. Since they couldn't get through to me on the phone, they immediately sent messages scolding me. Gabriella wished she could crawl out of the phone and strangle me. "You slutty bitch, you heartless whore, do you want to kill us? I should have asked Thomas to strangle you before you went out that day. Why haven't you been eaten by the zombies yet? You really are a curse that lingers for 1,000 years. Thomas was your husband after all. How could you harm your man like this? In ancient times, you would have been drowned in a pig cage for this." I sneered and sent a cheeky emoji. Oh, then I blocked both Thomas and Gabriella and let them lose their temper. I almost laughed to death. I bought the food and spent the money. In this life, did they still think they could rely on my supplies to survive until the rescue arrived? That was absolutely impossible. Even if I gave the supplies to others at a low price, I wouldn't let these two ungrateful people have them. 6. I watched the surveillance footage. Gabriella was still cursing me viciously. Thomas sat beside her. Although his face showed fear, he still pretended to be calm and comforted Gabriella, saying, "It's okay, Mom, our door is very strong." Lauren spent more than 10,000 yuan installing it at that time. Even if those people are very powerful, they can't break in. We just need to reinforce the windows and other things quickly. Gabriella nodded with a sad face, but the next second after Thomas finished speaking, there was a knock on the door. It was the people from the building who came to buy supplies. Gabriella and Thomas wanted to pretend that no one was at home, but the knocking on the door got louder and louder through the surveillance camera. I could even hear the low growls of the zombies outside. My home is on the 3rd floor. This floor doesn't have any advantages. If the zombies were really attracted in, the residents downstairs would be the first to bear the brunt. Thomas had to stand by the door and say politely, "Guys, we really don't have any supplies at home. Lauren and I had a fight. She just wants to kill me and is deliberately lying to you. Go back quickly. It will be dangerous if the zombies come later." A voice came from outside the door. "Thomas, we're all neighbors. Please have mercy and save us. As long as you give us a little food, the old people and children at home can't hold on any longer." Thomas of course didn't want to. Both sides kept arguing and couldn't reach an agreement. The people outside started to get impatient and began to bang on the door. Seeing that the door was very strong and the group of people couldn't do anything, Gabriella became bolder. She directly cursed, "What are you shouting for? If you attract the zombies, you'll die even faster. So what if I have supplies? I just won't give them to you. Life and death are determined by fate, and wealth is in the hands of heaven. You deserve to starve to death." Gabriella was naturally an impatient person, and her mouth was very venomous and mean. She had offended many families in the community. When the people outside heard this, they were so angry that they even took an axe, but they still couldn't break the door open. They kicked the door in a fit of rage. There was a slight banging sound from downstairs in the surveillance footage. I guessed that the zombies were hitting the door of the apartment building. Only then did the sounds outside disappear. At the same time, seeing that the people outside couldn't do anything to her, Gabriella became even more emboldened. She directly started scolding in the homeowners group, "You bunch of people who will shorten your lifespan. You didn't do good deeds in normal times. Now you want to rob our things when you have nothing to eat. You deserve to starve to death. I have supplies, and I have food, so what if I don't give them to you? Weren't you all so capable before? If anyone kneels down and barks like a dog twice, maybe I'll be merciful and give you some food." Gabriella's actions completely infuriated the residents in the homeowners group, but they were all helpless against Gabriella. There were even people in the group begging Gabriella and barking like dogs just to get a bite of food, because the old people at home were almost dying and hadn't eaten for 4 days, but they only received ridicule from Gabriella. Thomas stood beside her, looking worried and trying to stop Gabriella. Gabriella said, "What are you afraid of? You're so spineless, you're like this, that's why you were controlled by that slut Lauren. But fortunately, that little bitch is still somewhat useful. At least she has guaranteed our current food and safety." There were a lot of scolding voices in the group towards Gabriella, but Gabriella still posted a video of herself having a meal in the group to show off. The video also showed that there were a lot of supplies beside her. Looking at Gabriella's proud expression and the chaotic homeowners group, I stood out and said a word. "The password for my door is 025810. It's true that my front door is strong, but it's a password lock." Instantly, the group fell silent for a moment, and then it erupted. The messages directly flooded the screen. Gabriella was directly stunned in the surveillance footage. She took out her phone and started cursing at me, only to find that I had blocked her. She was in a state of being angry but having nowhere to vent her anger. And she was also very panicked. Thomas was also very angry, but he couldn't get in touch with me either. The mother and son wanted to change the password of the front door quickly, but it was already too late. I made myself a cup of coffee and watched the outcome of Gabriella and Thomas in the surveillance footage. Several big and strong men broke in. They not only pressed the two of them to the ground and beat them severely but also took away all the supplies in the house. Gabriella was beaten black and blue, and a lot of her hair was pulled out. Thomas hugged the thigh of one of the men and begged him to leave some supplies, but that man kicked Thomas in the chest. "Wasn't your mother very arrogant? Let her kneel on the ground and kowtow to me twice, and then bark like a dog twice. Maybe I'll be merciful and leave you some supplies." Gabriella's old face was swollen like a pig's head. She lay on the ground like a dead dog, not even having the strength to groan. Thomas lay on the ground, and tears streamed down his temples. Just then, I spoke through the surveillance camera. "Brother, leave them some supplies. After all, they have a deep mother-son relationship." The man recognized my voice. He looked at the surveillance camera and then at the two people on the ground. He sneered and left a bag of sesame paste. Then he left the mother and son, Gabriella and Thomas, and swaggered away. I was in a great mood, eating the freshly marinated chicken drumsticks. I taunted, "Thomas, Gabriella, I want to see how you can still have a deep mother-son relationship this time and how you can live until the end." Thinking of all the things in my previous life, I hated them deeply. Looking at their miserable state now, I felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction in my heart. There was only one bag of sesame paste left. I wanted to see how these two people could survive. It would be too easy for them to be torn apart by the zombies. I wanted them to turn against each other and live a life worse than death. Either they would starve to death in despair, or after having enough of the despair, they would go out to look for supplies and be eaten by the zombies. The pain I suffered in my previous life, they would have to pay it back 1,000 times over. Only then did the two of them remember that there were surveillance cameras at home. Thomas went crazy and stood up and smashed the surveillance camera. He was still shouting that I was a venomous woman. I sneered in my heart. To deal with people like Thomas and Gabriella, one had to act like a venomous woman. The screen went black, but unexpectedly, I could still hear the sound. I was delighted. Well, products made by Xiaomi are really different. 7. On the 10th day of the doomsday, it snowed heavily. Fortunately, the water and electricity hadn't been cut off yet. I turned on all the electric heaters and electric blankets that I had bought in advance and put on the down jacket that I had been reluctant to buy before. It was so warm in the room that my back was sweating. Tomorrow would be the new year. Thinking that I didn't live to this time in my previous life, I had a strange feeling in my heart. The kitchen was too cold to enter. Moreover, the sound of the range hood was too loud. And the zombies seemed to have evolved. Their hearing was even more acute. So I didn't dare to cook, so I turned on the induction cooker that I had bought before in the living room and stewed apples, longans, red dates, and fermented glutinous rice into a hot soup. After drinking it, I felt even warmer all over. Then I let the dough that I had prepared in advance rise beside the electric heater. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, it's our local custom to eat dumplings. Since I had nothing else to do anyway, I decided to make some dumplings completely by hand. I rummaged through the supplies again, took out the ingredients for the dishes I was going to cook the next day, and prepared them in advance. After finishing all these last night, I turned on my phone, and sounds came from the black screen of the surveillance camera. Thomas began to show disgust towards Gabriella. Not only did he swear at her, but there were also sounds of slapping her in the face. Gabriella's sobbing cries came through, and she kept wailing about the misfortune. In just a few short days, this mother and son had turned against each other. When I woke up early the next morning, it was extremely cold, the electric heater beside me seemed to have gone out, and the electric blanket under me wasn't warm anymore. It turned out that there was a power outage. Shivering, I put on my clothes and looked out the window. I found that the snow had stopped, the world was covered in white, and the whole world seemed brighter. The snow was so deep that it had already covered the heads of the zombies. They seemed to be frozen stiff, standing there motionless, while some were moving slowly. In my previous life, I was bitten to death by zombies right at the beginning of the apocalypse. It was also because of my resentment that I managed to hold on until the end. I only vaguely knew that the national rescue had arrived. I didn't know much about the other details. The dough had already frozen hard. I sighed, feeling it was a pity, but after all, it was the spring festival today, so I still had to make it look decent. I stuck some warming patches on my body, cleaned the house, and did a little exercise. My body wasn't as stiff anymore. I died in the midst of a group of zombies, full of despair. After getting everything ready, I observed the zombies for a while longer, checked the doors and windows. After making sure there was no problem, I sat on the bed and read a novel that I had downloaded in advance for a while. When it was evening, I turned on the camping stove and stir-fried the dishes that I had prepared the day before. Since it was all just for one person, the operation was very simple. During the break of stir-frying, I took out a box of self-heating rice and cooked it. When everything was ready, I took a photo. There was a power outage and the internet was also cut off. Fortunately, I had informed my parents that I was safe and wished them an early New Year the day before. In the evening, I ate the New Year's Eve dinner and watched the previous Spring Festival gala. Suddenly, a firework burst in the dark night outside. My heart was suddenly touched by something. This brief warmth seemed to take me back to the time before the apocalypse. There were still people alive like me. My heart was suddenly filled with hope. 8. On the 40th day of the apocalypse, the temperature rose a little bit. I didn't need the warming patches anymore, and my body wasn't stiff. I opened the yoga video that I had downloaded in advance and exercised along with it. On the 67th day of the apocalypse, spring gradually arrived, and the warm sunlight shone into the living room. The vegetables I planted finally sprouted. That touch of green vitality made me extremely happy. The zombies downstairs also regained their ability to move. On the 158th day of the apocalypse, the outside temperature rose, and a faint stench of decay wafted over. Many zombies were like candles. The rotten flesh on their bodies fell off, and it was a bit like they were melting. On the 170th day of the apocalypse, it rained for 3 days and 3 nights. The zombies on the ground slowly fell down. A drone flew outside the window, with a bright Chinese red color on it. There was also a loudspeaker on the drone playing on a loop that the country had developed a way to kill the zombies, and the corresponding vaccine. The water, electricity, and internet also began to be restored slowly. The morning sunlight shone into the living room. I opened the window and felt that the air was fresher than ever before. The east is red, and the sun is rising. Story 2, the day before the apocalypse. I was in a large supermarket spending my generous severance package from my recent job loss. My parents had finally finished renovating our old family villa, and with the Chinese New Year a couple of months away, I, unfortunately, got laid off after 5 years of hard work at my company. This misfortune surprisingly equipped me with a fortress and ample supplies for the end times. If only it weren't for the bully next door. On the day I was let go, my boss said to me, "Kendall, the company's severance package is very generous. I hope you won't dwell on it too much. Let's part on good terms and save face for both sides. It'll be less awkward if we bump into each other in the industry." His words were pretty, but wasn't it just because the boss's daughter and my boyfriend, who was also my manager, had a thing for each other and were eager to see me out? Ridiculous. Who would choose a lousy man over money? So I took the money and left. These next few months weren't too long or too short, just enough time to go home and rest with my parents. Since I was going home, I couldn't shortchange myself, though I had already stocked up on familiar household items during the shopping festival. Considering the 2-level basement at home used as a cellar, the inconvenient muddy roads that made deliveries a hassle, and my penchant for staying indoors, I felt I could shop a bit more. After a shopping spree, I drove my little cherry back to my hometown. It was my first time visiting the villa that had been built over 2 years ago. What a shock it was. Wow. The yard was over 500 square meters, surrounded by walls over 2 meters high, with explosion-proof gates and even an electric fence. Could this be a prison? "Ah, you're back," greeted my mother. "Mom, what's with these walls and this gate?" I asked, picking up my dropped jaw and looking around. The front yard was neatly arranged with 5 or 6 vegetable patches lush with greens, and there was a small fish pond in the southeast corner with several tilapias swimming around. It's all because of that jerk Hugo next door. Hugo and his wife, both over 50, had a son named Hunter. They spoiled him rotten, and the young boy had already been in juvenile detention a few times. I was often bullied by him during my childhood, especially after starting middle school, as I grew up. He would whistle and follow me every time I went home, forcing my dad to pick me up early from school. After he was sentenced to 5 years for assault, I was finally free from him. Just thinking about his malicious gaze still sends shivers down my spine. That jerk climbed over the wall one day and tried to break into your dad's safe. Fortunately, the house had just been renovated and we hadn't bought much furniture yet, and the safe was just a cheap one given by the renovation company. So it was empty. The night we stayed at your Uncle G's place in the city, we came back the next day to find the house trashed. That jerk, failing to find any money, smashed all our windows. Your dad and I went to report it to the police, but that jerk had already run away. The local police know him well but can't do much about him. He was previously sentenced for a few years, but he hasn't changed at all. Hugo's parents are shameless, even coming to our doorstep to curse us, blaming us for driving their son away. Your dad was so angry he couldn't sleep for days. Mom continued as she led me into the house. Finally, your dad and I decided if we can't confront them, we can at least avoid them. So we raised the walls higher, installed an electric fence, and replaced the gate with the sturdiest one available. The contractor said that only a lot of explosives could break it. Even the windows have been replaced with bulletproof glass. We heard Hugo fled to Southeast Asia, where it's chaotic and war-torn, and guns are rampant. Who knows if that jerk might secretly get a gun and come back. In recent years, our family has been doing well, and many are envious. Listening to this, I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I had been so busy working away from home that I had neglected my parents far too much. Mom, why didn't you tell me about something so serious? I would have brought you guys to the city the moment I knew that scoundrel was released. Wherever he goes, trouble follows. How's Dad? Is he feeling any better? I didn't see him at home. He's been fine for a while now. Your dad and I are both farmers, tough as old boots. Even if we feel under the weather, we get over it in a few days. Your dad left early this morning to pick up an old friend who's coming over. It's your Uncle Lee. Poor man. He stayed loyal to the memory of his late wife for so many years, never remarried, doesn't even have children. He really only gets along with your dad. Also, the parcel we ordered has arrived. I asked him to bring it back with him. After changing upstairs, I followed Mom to sort out the basement, as she mentioned we'd bought too much recently and hadn't organized it properly. When I saw the neatly arranged shelves in the basement, my jaw dropped again. The shelves were packed tightly with large packages of grains, oils, rice, noodles, and various household supplies like toilet paper, toothpaste, toothbrushes, shampoo, shower gel, and even the sanitary pads I usually use took up an entire shelf. In the corners, there were several large freezers, and the floor was covered with piles of unopened parcels. Mom, why did you buy so much? There was a sale online a couple of months ago, much cheaper than buying from the stores downtown. You know we have the housewarming party after New Year, and the prices for these goods will skyrocket around then. It's better to buy them at a discount now and stock up. These items have long shelf lives. They'll last. My mom calculated the savings with gleaming eyes. We clearly got a great deal. Seeing her so happy, I didn't bother discussing the economics of false savings with her and resignedly helped her sort through the parcels. Nothing is more precious than my mom's happiness. When she's happy, the whole family is happy. We kept busy sorting things out until noon, and by then, I was so tired I could barely straighten my back. While opening parcels is usually fun, doing it for 3 or 4 hours straight is quite painful. Fortunately, the basement was equipped with air conditioning and a ventilation system, so it wasn't too uncomfortable. After lunch, Dad still hadn't returned, so Mom decided to take me to clean the second basement level. That's when I noticed all the external units of our air conditioners were installed there. Mom explained that they used to be outside, but our neighbor Hugo had cut the wires several times, complaining that the noise was too disturbing. He insisted that we couldn't install them outside. Between the lines, it was clear they wanted some sort of compensation for their mental anguish, otherwise, these AC units wouldn't be installed. These are minor issues. His family is all ruffians. It's not worth arguing with them. They have nothing to lose, and if things escalate, who knows what they might do to us. Remember old Mr. Lee from Dong Village? Grandpa Lee used to run a vineyard in Dong Village. 2 years ago, when Hunter was freshly out of prison and loitering around the village, he noticed that Grandpa Lee had just received a cash payment for his grapes. The old man didn't use mobile payments and carried cash. The sight of the shiny new bills tempted Hunter, and that night, He sneaked into Lee's house and stole tens of thousands of yuan. The next day, Grandpa Lee and his family came with the police to confront Hunter, but he had fled overnight. Hugo and his wife refused to disclose their son's whereabouts, insisting Hunter wasn't the thief. Without any evidence, Hunter had left neither footprints nor fingerprints at the scene. The police couldn't do much, emotions ran high, and in the ensuing chaos, who threw the first punch was unclear. But Hugo ended up in the hospital with a few bruises to his chest. Although the injuries were minor, Hugo used this as leverage to extort money and goods from the Lee family for years. Only early last year, when Grandpa Lee's health truly deteriorated, did he sell his vineyard and went traveling. Hugo wanted to continue causing trouble, but Lee's younger son, tired of the extortion, resigned from his public service job to start a business, and Hugo finally backed down. 5. These recent events really made your father and me think. Over the past few years, we've leased out all our land except for the orchard on the back hill. Your dad and I are planning to travel around since you're working in the city and no one's at home. The external unit of the air conditioner being mounted on the outside wall is a potential hazard. Who knows if Hunter, when he's out of money, might dismantle it to sell. And what if it falls while he's taking it down, anyway? There's room in the basement. I've installed separate ventilation and soundproofing there. It's even better than the upstairs soundproofing, so it won't disturb us. A small expense to avoid a big problem. The second basement level doesn't have air conditioning, only a ventilation system, so we didn't store any food there, just some of my dad's tools and farming equipment. There weren't many things, and we didn't tidy up much. My mom saw it was about time to cook, so she went to prepare food. And I went upstairs to comfortably soak in a bath. After I was all settled, I took out my phone to watch some videos but instead saw a glaring headline on a video-sharing platform: Zombie Siege. The apocalypse has arrived. A virus resembling that of zombies is spreading in our city. Please be cautious and avoid going out unless absolutely necessary. This morning, a person suspected of having rabies bit several people in a busy district. Duty officers and several civilians subdued him, and the injured have been taken to the hospital, one after another. Videos of bloody, terrifying zombie attacks filled my screen, making me think, it's December, not April Fools. When I opened WeChat, the residents' group chat of our neighborhood was in uproar. I heard that a rabies-infected person bit someone on the pedestrian street. It took an officer and 4 or 5 strong men nearly couldn't hold him down. Look at the entrance of our complex. Isn't that the owner from Building 6? His arm is so badly injured. Why isn't he going to the hospital to get it bandaged? Oh dear, there's so much blood. That's a zombie. The owner from Building 6 has turned. He just bit the security guard at the gate. Everyone get home. Don't go out. Message after message. Video after video. I had no choice but to believe it. The apocalypse was really here. 6. I was thinking about calling my dad to ask him to come back when I heard the engine of the old Jean Bay van. I turned around to see my dad hadn't even turned off the car engine and was frantically closing the gate. Dad also looked back and called out, "Kendall, come help Daddy close the gate. It's dangerous outside. There are zombies biting people." Dad ranted and raved for a while, startling my mom. I quickly gestured to my dad to calm down. First we thoroughly locked the gate, then electrified the fence on top of the wall. And when we got back inside, we locked all the windows and drew the curtains. My mom, who used to suffer from mild neurasthenia due to job stress years ago, couldn't sleep with any light, so all our curtains were blackout curtains. After finishing all this, I returned to the ground floor, where my mom was softly comforting my dad. I showed my mom the short videos on my phone. Thankfully, I had reacted quickly and saved them. They must have been taken down by now, as they were really too gory. Even if not manually reviewed, the algorithms would recognize it. Dad took a sip of water and slowly began. This morning, I first went to the courier station to pick up a package, then after lunch, I went to the highway exit to meet Old Lee. He just took early retirement and had planned to come over to fish and relax for a few days, but he was delayed way past our agreed time, and I thought it unsafe to call him on the highway, so I just patiently waited. Just now, I saw his car and noticed he seemed injured. When he handed over his card at the highway exit, I saw blood on his hand. I was in my car and started it when I saw his, thinking we'd head back together, but then, the toll booth girl saw the blood and called over a colleague. I heard them dialing for emergency help. Old Lee, sitting in his car, had his eyes wide open, looking listless and almost unconscious, with his clothes half soaked in blood. I was about to get out to check on him when Old Lee suddenly burst out of his car and bit the toll booth girl on the neck, tearing off a large chunk of flesh. The blood splattered high, and that little girl was gone in an instant. Even several young men couldn't hold him down. I was so terrified I couldn't move, not to mention Old Lee with all his ailments. Even if he was 20 years younger, he wouldn't have that kind of strength. That's when I thought of the zombies from the movies. I corrected my dad. Not zombies, but the undead, my dad said. Oh right, the undead, my dad continued. It wasn't long before that girl, the one Oldley had bitten, she stood up too. After she got up, she bit the closest young man to her. I couldn't hesitate any longer. I floored the accelerator and headed home, after finishing his story. My dad covered his face and cried silently. It's heartbreaking to see a lifelong friend pass away right before your eyes in such a manner. I suspect Uncle Lee must have been attacked at the service area because it's only less than a 10-minute drive from the nearest highway exit to my place. Moreover, Uncle Lee must have been attacked by an undead that hadn't fully mutated, thinking it wasn't serious, or planning to deal with it after getting off the highway. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to drive on the highway. From this situation, I presume that by tonight, our area will definitely see the undead. There's no time left. It's 3:30 in the afternoon now. I immediately got up and went upstairs to the living room, gathered my college computer and the old TV we had at home. Then I woke my father from his sorrow, asking him to display the surveillance footage on the big screen. As my mom and I know nothing about these things, we had to rely on my dad. I then ran to the basement, rummaged through my dad's tools to see if there was anything that could be used as a weapon. Even if it couldn't kill the undead, it could still fend off malevolent people in these dire times. I have never forgotten that human nature is the most terrifying. After searching for a while, I only found a small hatchet and 2 firewood knives that could barely be used. Everything else was too cumbersome and not suitable for weapons. Suddenly, I spotted several large barrels of high-proof liquor and about 20 cases of branded liquor next to them, which my dad had kept for hosting guests during important events. Without hesitation, I pulled over a small cart and moved the liquor upstairs, grabbing a few bottles of turpentine along the way. I still remember my high school history teacher telling us about the use of Molotov cocktails during the Spanish Civil War. It was interesting, so I remembered it well. I went to my mom's room, grabbed several large pieces of cotton cloth and cut them with scissors. Then, I gathered some empty beer bottles my dad had finished and made a few simple Molotov cocktails. I originally thought of testing their power, but I was afraid that the noise would attract unwanted attention, so I had to give up. But having these things made me feel somewhat more secure. When I went back upstairs, I found my dad had already connected all the wires, and the surveillance video from various angles was clearly displayed on the screen. I took stock of our supplies. In life, one cannot do without food and water. For food, we don't have to worry. Thanks to my mom, the storeroom in the basement has enough supplies to last us until the year after next. For water, our house has 3 water pipes. One is the village tap water, which I don't expect to last more than a few days. One is connected to the old well at the old house, retained mainly because of the large water consumption of my dad's fish pond. I was concerned about the water quality from the well, so I took advantage of a sale and bought a commercial water purifier. The last one is connected to a spring that was directed from the orchard behind our villa. The hill isn't very high, but the water quality is exceptional. The spring water was discovered by my mom by accident, and after my dad had it tested, he found it not only met drinking standards but was also rich in minerals. The flow is quite low, so we haven't told others about the spring water on the hill. My dad uses it to brew tea, while my mom uses it for cooking and making soup. As for the restroom, when the orchard was just set up, my grandfather started a pig farm at the foot of the hill. However, after the price of live pigs plummeted and my grandfather's health declined, after we stopped raising pigs, my grandfather built a septic tank at the foot of the mountain to handle the pig manure and to make it easier to fertilize the fruit trees. When we were installing sewage pipes during the villa renovation, because the pipes had to pass by Hugo's house, my mom, not wanting to deal with the hassle, directly connected the sewage pipes to the septic tank. Now, I think I should actually thank Hugo for that. Regarding electricity, when the villa was first being renovated, a distant relative who sold solar panels came to pitch his product. My dad, who was a bit clueless without my mom around, agreed to let him install the panels. When my mom came back and saw what had been done, and that a 5-year contract had been signed, both she and I were furious. I had originally planned to set up a swing and create a rooftop garden. I remember being very angry with my dad at the time, and now I think it was a blessing that my mom wasn't home then. Thinking of this, I quickly had my dad connect the solar panel wires to the main switch of the house. Previously, the village had low voltage, and although we bought a transformer, it wasn't used because the village soon upgraded the voltage. My mom had it installed when we were setting up the plumbing and electrical systems, thankfully keeping to her habit of not wasting anything. Now we have all the basic necessities we need. What's left is for entertainment. I took out the tablet and all the smartphones to start downloading various TV shows, movies, and documentaries. I also found a few USB drives to download not only films but also a variety of ebooks. During this time, I moved all the parcels from my dad's car to the basement. By the time everything was sorted, it was already 8 p.m. at that moment. Standing in the yard listening to screams and shouts coming from the village, I felt utterly calm inside. Our family, with my mom not in good health and my dad getting older, can only rely on me, and I'm no miraculous savior. I'm just an ordinary person. All I want is to strive to survive with my family. I turned back, entered the house, and shut the door, cutting off all outside noise. After a distracted dinner, we sat in the living room on the second floor, watching the surveillance videos. Our house is somewhat secluded, set back a bit from the main road, and so far, no zombies had appeared. Hugo, the old man living nearest to us, had gone out to check the noises, returned pale and panicked, and quickly locked himself in his home. We don't really have any close relatives to contact. Both my parents were only children, and I'm their only child. All my grandparents had passed away long ago. The rest of the relatives had already shown their true colors when my dad mentioned borrowing money to build the villa. Just to be cautious, I had already warned my parents about the unpredictability of human nature. We could save one person but not a crowd. In these apocalyptic times, preserving ourselves is crucial. We absolutely must not let danger into our home. My parents understood. Initially, we had never intended to build a villa. It was too showy, and neither of my parents liked that. It was only because the village needed to clear the land for road construction. Taking over the old tile-roofed house that had stood vacant for years, all of my parents' money was tied up in fixed deposits at the bank. I had just quit my job to switch companies and hadn't yet settled into the new one, so we couldn't immediately access much cash. After asking all our relatives, not one was willing to lend us money. The most disheartening was my dad's cousin. In the past, both families had struggled, and my dad, remembering how his cousin had a tough time at her in-laws, scrimped and saved to buy her a nice coat for the new year. When her son was performing poorly in school, my dad went out of his way to get him into a good school and even secured him a job in a large company. Over the years, my dad was always the first to help his cousin whenever she called. I had expressed my dissatisfaction, but my dad said they were family, and the good he did for them today would be repaid to us in the future. This was his belief as I was growing up and would one day marry. My parents are no longer around, but I still have an aunt and a supportive older brother. Unexpectedly, my parents even showed her their bank book, yet that distant aunt still claimed she had no money to lend and immediately signed up her family of 5 for a luxurious tour of 7 European countries. She flaunted her shopping spree at luxury stores on social media. If it weren't for my cousin's boss coincidentally running into my father and mentioning that my cousin must have won the lottery, we would still be in the dark. You can block someone on social media, but you can't block them from your social circle. In a fit of anger, my parents decided to build a beautiful villa to show those opportunistic relatives. Now that we are facing a major crisis, no one can blame us for only looking after ourselves. I moved my gaming chair out of my room and agreed with my parents that starting tonight, I would take the night shift, my dad the day shift, and my mom would take care of our daily needs. After discussing, I sent them off to sleep. Even if they couldn't sleep, they needed to rest. The end times have begun ringing, and the future will be a prolonged battle. We need to be well rested to face it. At night, I monitored the cameras while browsing videos online, where people were either genuinely seeking help and supplies or just trying to gain attention and increase their followers. Suddenly, a post caught my eye, written by someone called the Irresponsible Newshound. The post analyzed that, based on the available data, this zombie outbreak was global. Outbreaks had already occurred in Western countries, and only the reduction of international flights due to the pandemic had delayed the outbreak here. The domestic outbreak was traced back to a dog, which had escaped after being infected abroad and was picked up and sent back to China by a Chinese student. The first reports of zombie attacks involved this student's parents. The virus didn't just appear out of nowhere. The only medical records available for the student's parents were of a rabies vaccination after being bitten by the rabid dog. The author also posted the elderly couple's vaccination records and hospital surveillance footage from the day, mentioning that he had noticed zombies abroad long before. These videos were often considered pranks abroad and were not taken seriously or dealt with. He expressed his frustration that despite knowing disaster was imminent, no one believed him, and instead, they called him crazy. So, he returned to his hometown alone, stockpiled a large amount of supplies, hoping to safely survive the apocalypse. This person is extraordinary. That was my first impression. Insightful, meticulous. and technically proficient enough to hack into hospital records to obtain vaccination records and surveillance footage. Thinking about it, there must be many such people, especially since some bloggers abroad had already been advising people to stock up on food and stay home under the guise of the COVID-19 pandemic, although they weren't as straightforward as this news hound. It also reminded me to be wary of animal transmission of the zombie virus. Similar to how the virus in the movie Train to Busan originated from a dead deer, I checked the newshound's account. The IP was shown as being from a major coastal city, obviously altered to mislead others, because that city had fallen by dawn, and this post was published at 4 in the morning, until 6. The comments were mocking and accusing the author of exploiting the situation for traffic. After 6, the comments were all about worshipping the genius and begging for supplies. The top comment was from an ID called Survivors Tribe, with a picture comment showing a warehouse full of supplies. They even posted an address at a certain university in the city, calling for survivors to gather together to resist the zombies and rebuild their homeland. I shook my head. It was too juvenile, like children playing make-believe. Today is the first day of the zombie outbreak, and many people have survived. Not to mention how people are supposed to break through the zombies to reach their destination or calculate how long these supplies can sustain people. Once people gathered, who would lead them? How would order be re-established? A few students who only know theory couldn't possibly handle it, and who could guarantee that everyone would be as enthusiastic and selflessly dedicated as these students. After all, in places where the law does not reach, might makes right. It's a mistake for a group of naive students to possess and publicize such a wealth of resources. All I can do is silently pray for them. Nothing happened overnight, but it wasn't until the early morning that I heard my mom's voice saying that my dad had developed a fever, having witnessed a zombie attack and under immense stress. Even my dad, who is usually in good health, couldn't cope, especially since we hadn't stocked up on any medicine at home. My mom and I searched the entire basement, only to find a bunch of masks, disinfectant, diarrhea medicine, and a few boxes of herbal tonic. Due to the pandemic, it had been a long time since we last bought fever medicine. Not even cold medicine was available. My mom had no choice but to sit by the bed and repeatedly wipe my dad's body to cool him down. Fortunately, by dusk, his fever had subsided. I was both tired and hungry, but I had no appetite at all. I cooked some porridge for my dad and my mom, and I just settled for some frozen dumplings. That evening, Mom suggested she would watch over him for the first half of the night and I could take over for the second half. I initially disagreed. Staying up all night for several days in a row is normal for me when rushing work projects, so staying up for 2 nights was nothing. However, Mom strongly objected. When you're at work, I don't interfere, but when you're at home, you have to listen to me. How can you ruin your health being a young lady? Besides, your dad is sick, and if anything happens, we would still need you to handle it. Although I haven't been very healthy these past few years, missing a few hours of sleep won't kill me. I've warmed some milk for you. It's by your bedside. Go drink it and sleep. Unable to argue with her, I went back to my room to sleep. But once I closed the door, I couldn't stop my tears from flowing. Throughout these years of working alone away from home, I've been frustrated with my mom for only being concerned about my marriage. I always held a grudge at work, wanting to prove to my mom that I could do well without getting married or relying on a man, but I had ignored my parents' feelings. They treated my cousins well simply because they didn't want me to be alone after they were gone. Others only see the designer bags I bought or the deals I closed, but only my parents worried about how many nights I stayed up and how much trouble I faced from clients. They were the ones concerned about whether I was being bullied, whether I had enough to eat or warm clothes to wear. I tried hard to hold back my tears, obediently drank the milk, and went to sleep. My dad's illness made me realize how important it is to maintain a healthy body. We didn't have medicine, we couldn't afford to get sick. It looks like I need to make a fitness plan tomorrow. With these thoughts, I fell into a deep sleep. I woke up at 7 in the morning, springing out of bed like a coil. After quickly freshening up and opening the door, I saw that my dad was already up and had prepared breakfast with Mom. Come on, get up. Dad made breakfast today. Come and have some. I obediently sat at the dining table, noticing that although Dad still looked a bit frail, he was in good spirits. Dad, how are you feeling? Why don't you rest a bit more? Mom, weren't you supposed to wake me up for my shift? It's okay. Your dad is better now. I'll go to sleep in a bit. I promise not to be a burden. Today, you take the morning shift and let your dad take the afternoon shift, but I think we don't need to keep watch all night. It's too exhausting in the long run. I just went up to the roof to check, and zombies only appear near the main road in our village. Our house is still safe for now. Plus, our surveillance cameras have an alarm function, don't they? We can just sleep with our phones on, and if zombies approach, we'll know. I thought about it, but still felt it wasn't enough. Just like locks on the doors. Surveillance is meant to deter honest people, not the dishonest ones. Right now, I'm not afraid of zombies. Mom, did anyone see you hoarding all that food back then? Well, I don't think so. You know, the owner of the grain and oil store down the street has been friends with your dad for over a decade. I bought so much online this time, worried that it might be awkward if the owner saw, so I covered everything with a tarp and pulled it back. If anyone asks, we say it's fertilizer for the orchard. I don't think anyone noticed. It's reasonable to be worried. It's always better to be cautious just in case, but you don't need to work all night. I'll take over at 3 o'clock, from the afternoon to early morning. We'll switch shifts periodically. That's settled. With Dad being firm, I had no choice but to agree. After breakfast, I urged my parents to rest and sat in front of the surveillance system to reopen the post I saw the other night. The author Newshound hadn't replied yet, but the popular comment under Survivor Tribe was quite lively. The comments were mostly accusations and curses. It seemed that people really did follow the address, only to be turned away at the door and have all their supplies taken. Someone even mentioned that his girlfriend was allowed in, but he wasn't, and he was angrily questioning why. It looked like some people had managed to get in first. And maybe the original group of students had been taken over by them. Who knows if those now in the school are human or something else. I was going to comment to remind everyone, but then I thought better of it. The more you say, the more mistakes you make. Some people can even hack the medical system, so they might be able to see my home's situation through surveillance. They would definitely see that we've bought a lot of supplies. It's better to keep a low profile and protect ourselves wisely. 14. As noon approached, my parents got up and started cooking lunch in the kitchen. Suddenly, I smelled smoke. I couldn't see anything on the surveillance, so I cautiously pulled back the curtain to look, and it seemed like the village was on fire, with thick smoke and flames reaching the sky. I rushed to the 3rd floor and, using the parapet and solar panels for cover, crouched down to look outside. It was the old mute man's house in the village center. A wooden structure, small building from the late Qing dynasty, typical of that area. Here, with our subtropical monsoon climate, winters are mild and dry, and the fire, fueled by the wind, grew fiercer, drawing zombies towards its center. I could hear many cries for help, but the distance was too great to see clearly. I could only be thankful that we were upwind, safe from the fire's reach. Then Dad came up too, holding a pair of binoculars. I had bought them in my freshman year when I joined the birdwatching society, economizing to afford them, but I had a falling out with a senior in the society and quit, tossing the binoculars away in anger. Seeing my puzzled look, Dad explained, I was about to throw them away, but your mom found them while throwing out the trash and thought they were toy binoculars. They looked quite new, so she planned to keep them to give to your cousin's son to play with. I later saw them in the storeroom and picked them up. Seeing how upset you were, I didn't tell you. I never thought they'd come in handy today. I took the binoculars, adjusted them, and saw someone rush out from the alley behind the old mute man's house. The person, with blonde hair, was skinny and ragged, holding a blood-stained machete that still gleamed silver, though it was unclear whether the blood was from a human or a zombie. The blonde pulled out a small speaker from his pocket, turned it on, threw it on the ground, and walked away without looking back, leaving the speaker flashing colorful lights on the ground. This blonde seemed familiar, but I couldn't recall where I had seen him before. 15. However, with all the commotion, the zombies in the village had all gathered in the center, making our position on the outskirts even safer. But this would definitely lead to an exponential increase in the number of zombies in the village. The thick smoke didn't enter the respiratory tract, but it could still suffocate a person. In the center of the village, those who survived either suffocated, were devoured, or turned into zombies. Thus, it was only a matter of time before zombies spread to the vicinity of my home. I handed the binoculars to my dad with a worried heart, and he recognized the blonde guy right away. That's the notorious troublemaker from the next village. He dropped out of school around the age of 15 or 16 and always tagged along behind Hunter. Once my dad mentioned it, I remembered the guy. He was 2 grades above me, famous throughout the school for breaking a classmate's ribs. I remembered him because he almost raped my desk mate. The blonde guy and my desk mate came from the same village. She was an art student who transferred back from the city because of the middle school exams and needed to return to her registered residence, so she transferred back in the 2nd semester of 8th grade. Our middle school was a boarding school, and we had weekends off. She would first go to her grandmother's house on the weekends, return to the city on Saturday, and come back to school on Sunday afternoon, that time, because her uncle's birthday was on a Friday. Her father and brother came back early to pick her up. While passing by the village temple, they saw her backpack. Worried, they got out of the car and after searching, they found that the beast had tied up my desk mate. At that time, my desk mate's grandmother, not having seen her come home, came to ask if her granddaughter was at my place. I went out with her to look for her, which is how I came to know about these things. Because the blonde guy was a minor and it was attempted crime. He received a light sentence. Later, my desk mate transferred schools and even moved her household registration to her grandmother's place. The blonde guy's father pulled some strings and had him sent to a psychiatric hospital. Although many years have passed, that fierce face still haunted me in my nightmares for several days. The figure of the blonde guy gradually merged with the person in my memories. Oh no, if the blonde guy is here, then Hunter must have come back too. Indeed. A small car took advantage of the gap when the zombies gathered in the village center and swiftly drove up the muddy road, stopping in front of Hugo's house. Hunter and the blonde guy stepped out from the driver and passenger seats, followed by two unfamiliar men and a little girl from the back seat. The girl looked to be about 14 or 15, wearing a shiny pink hairpin and a princess dress, carrying a matching pink suitcase. But draped in a men's jacket, the girl seemed quite lively. Hopping around the four of them, the blonde guy said to the girl, "Laurel, see, I told you Hunter wouldn't leave us behind." Then he affectionately kissed her on the cheek, indicating a close relationship between the two. However, the two other guys behind them, seemingly jealous, kept holding the girl's hand. Is this what young girls are into these days? But given the current situation, it seems the zombies outside blocked Hunter's path. So the blonde guy went to set a fire to distract the zombies. If it were me, I'd probably try to lure the zombies away too, but why start a fire in someone's house when there's so much straw around the village that could be burned? Hunter casually walked to Hugo's door, knocking and calling for his parents to open it. Hugo and his wife were naturally thrilled to see their son and hurriedly welcomed them inside. However, before entering, Hunter disdainfully glanced at his own home's barely 1 meter tall wall. Then turned back and pensively stared at our house. My heart sank. Hunter, I don't provoke others unless provoked, but if provoked, I will certainly retaliate. In this apocalypse, even a rabbit will bite when cornered. I hope you don't seek your own demise. I went back to the second floor with my dad and told them Hunter had returned, bringing 3 young men with him. Given the look Hunter gave before entering his house, I had a feeling he had plans for our house. Especially since the solar panels on our rooftop were highly valuable in these end times. Thinking it over, I felt it was best to prepare early. While discussing, my mom cheerily brought up a cardboard box filled with little chicks. She found them in the orchard where some hen had made a nest and laid a batch of eggs, which attracted a bunch of other hens to lay their eggs there too. Mom returned the unfertilized eggs to Aunt Six, who raised chickens, but kept a dozen fertilized ones. My mom, though skilled at raising chickens, was a novice at incubating eggs found in the wild. We didn't have high hopes initially, so Dad just set up an incandescent light over the eggs and occasionally flipped them without paying much further attention, leaving them in a corner of the kitchen. It was only today when I heard the chirping sounds that I remembered about the eggs. Seeing my parents happily discussing how to care for the chicks, my mood lightened significantly. I wished these simple, warm moments could last forever, but we still had to face reality. Hugo's house is only 1 story and sits lower than ours. From his roof, looking towards our yard, you can only see the fruit trees, not even the fish pond that's a meter high. However, from our place, not only can we see Hugo's entire property, we even have a camera pointed directly at his front door, adjusted just so he wouldn't notice. It's a pity we can't hear inside his house. If we could listen in on their conversations and understand their plans, we could be better prepared. After lunch, I went back to sleep, given that I saw Hunter loading up his car with plenty of supplies, and with utilities still running, a young girl and his elderly parents with him. From what I know of him, he's probably busy enjoying himself and won't be bothering us for now. Someone who's spent a lifetime sneaking around and has been in jail surely knows how to handle a reinforced door and an electrified fence. We're safe until he figures out how to bypass those. I woke up at 7 p.m. The fire in the village had died down, suggesting the wooden houses had burned down, and the concrete ones, lacking flammable exteriors, had stopped the fire from spreading. That's when I noticed the phone lines were down and the electricity was out. Possibly due to the afternoon fire damaging the wires, Dad switched on the solar panels. Thankfully, winters here in Lingnan aren't too harsh, and we only needed to keep the freezer, fridge, and the grid powered. I grabbed an outdoor battery, typically used by Dad in the orchard, but now repurposed for heating my bath water. Apparently, transitioning from luxury to simplicity is much harder than the reverse. I just can't stand cold showers anymore. After my shower, I saw Mom talking to Dad in front of the surveillance screen. It's such a sin. That little girl is only a few years old. These bastards have no fear of divine retribution. What happened, Mom? What divine retribution? It turns out that the village water supply was cut off earlier, and while Mom sneaked out to the garden, she overheard Mrs. Hugo and the girl coming out to draw water. The Hugos have a well in their yard, and though there was a power outage, they still had a hand-pumped water extractor, a common fixture in our area, unfortunately. Their hand pump hadn't been used in a long time, and Mrs. Hugo made the girl try to operate the rusty pump. The girl, lacking the strength, struggled, and Mrs. Hugo, lowering her voice, began to scold her harshly. At first, the girl softly objected, but that only made Mrs. Hugo angrier, and soon there were sounds of slaps followed by the girl's soft crying. Mom sighed deeply. When I first married your dad, Hugo was only a few months old when you were born. He used to follow me around asking when you'd start calling him uncle. No matter how many wrongs he's done over the years, and no matter how angry I've been, I've always hoped he'd settle down and straighten out his life. No, I just hope God takes him away. He's ruined a little girl's life. Upon hearing this, alarms went off in my head. Mom hadn't seen the girl getting out of the car that day, but Dad and I exchanged knowing looks. And he immediately started consoling Mom quietly while I decided to speak up. Mom, let me put things into perspective. If there hadn't been a zombie outbreak, students wouldn't be on holiday yet, right? Our nearby schools are mostly boarding schools, releasing students for a break either weekly or monthly. The girl was wearing a dress from a niche foreign brand, inexpensive but hard to come by. I've only seen it once on a client's daughter, and her handbag was from the same series. What does that tell us? What does that show? It shows that this little girl comes from a good family and that she sneaked out on her own. She's either skipping school or running away from home. I concluded, if she was abducted from school or on her way to or from school, she should be wearing a uniform. Why would she be dressed in a beautiful princess dress, carrying a lovely bag, and wearing a pretty hair clip? That's clearly an outfit for a date. If I'm not mistaken, one of them. Maybe Hunter met this girl online. How else could a girl from her background come into contact with someone like Hunter? They gained her trust, and she willingly went with them. Is this true? How could this little girl trust strangers so easily? Her parents must be so worried. Mom was clearly putting herself in the situation, so I asked at the right moment, Mom, what would you do if I, at the age of 14 or 15, stopped attending school and ran off with a man carrying my bags? You dare, and I'll break your legs and never let you through this door again. I'd say it's like raising a thankless child. After all, she was deceived. Mom, do you remember when I impulsively applied for a QQ account in middle school and someone messaged me to hang out? Did I decisively block and delete them, and even turned it into a joke to tell you? I took a sip of tea. Dad's tea-making skills are getting better, actually. At 14 or 15, one already has a clear sense of judgment. Teachers at school also constantly warn everyone not to trust so-called friends online easily. I didn't expect to see this kind of thing happening today. This little girl comes from a wealthy family. She isn't lacking material things. Just look at her dress. It's more expensive than all 4 of Hunter's outfits put together. To put it bluntly, even though she knew these 4 were no good and poor, she still followed Hunter without looking back. Why feel sympathy for such a girl? Besides, if this girl had the courage to go with Hunter and his group, it shows she's not exactly innocent. Maybe she's enjoying the feeling of being treated like a queen. To be honest, if 4 men showed interest in me at the same time, appealing to my vanity, I might also lose my head and run off with them. However, Hunter and yellow hair don't qualify as men. They are more like beasts. So, Mom, don't be fooled by her. This might be a scheme from the other side, trying to make you pity that little girl. Watch, in a few days, that little girl will come crying for help, tricking you into letting her in, and then she'll collaborate with Hunter to swindle our house and possessions. Seeing Mom's shocked and incredulous face, I continued, do you think my middle school deskmate transferred just because her grandmother lives in a province famous for arts exams? It was because a jealous classmate spread rumors about her, leading other girls to ostracize her. Girls today are very cunning. You've dealt with deceitful traitors all your life. Don't let this little girl capsize us in a ditch. Although my comments were malicious speculations, school violence is real, and my deskmate really did transfer. For now, as long as I can keep my mom convinced, that's enough. It's all a ruse. The tears of that little girl, I've seen them all before. Seeing Mom nod solemnly, I finally felt relieved. Turning around, I saw Dad had partially opened the curtains and was using binoculars to look towards the village center. After a long moment, he turned back with a sigh. I took the binoculars and looked too. A scene of ruins, the remaining flames casting shadows of wandering zombies. It's all gone, nothing left. The mute old man had just had his adopted son come back from finishing his college internship, and 6 auntie living next to the mute old man. Her daughter and grandchild were staying at her mother's house. If the fire hadn't started, I could still deceive myself, thinking that everyone else was alive and well like us. So many years of neighbors, we used to see each other every day. I was also filled with mixed emotions, but still spoke up to comfort my parents, then sent them back to sleep. Late at night, I was playing a game on my phone when Hugo, as expected, stirred up trouble. The young girl, not even wearing a jacket, grabbed her luggage and headed out the door, but unfortunately, she was caught before she could even reach the gate and was dragged back. Don't blame me for being heartless. After all, in the company, I have personally sent away dozens of young interns fresh out of school. If this had happened 3 years ago, I might have been moved by someone else's tears. But now my heart has become as cold and hard as the stone lions at the entrance of a bank in winter, throughout the night. Aside from Hugo's feigned distress act, only 2 or 3 zombies were lured over by the neighborhood cats. After the cats left, the zombies disappeared too. In the morning, when my dad came over to take over, I told him to keep a special eye on Hugo before I went to catch up on some sleep. Thus, we lived in peace until the 6th day after the zombie outbreak, which also happened to be the last day of the calendar year. Tonight was New Year's Eve. Besides Hugo occasionally making his presence felt, the frequency of zombie appearances in our vicinity had increased. Luckily, always diverted by the stray cats, our family had adapted to this post-apocalyptic life. My mom tended chickens and grew vegetables daily, and since my dad had fixed an old radio, he spent his days tinkering with whatever he could find, like the sewing machine that came as part of my mom's dowry. This peaceful scene was disrupted at dusk by a brilliant sunset, so stunningly beautiful that I took many photos with my camera. Hugo's girl showed up at our doorstep, her clothes tattered and torn. Still, she came. These days, without water, electricity, or internet, it's surprising Hunter lasted this long. Is anyone there? Please, I need help. They tricked me. Please, save me. Open the door. I managed to escape after getting them drunk today. Please help me. Once they sober up, I'm done for. At that moment, our family was calmly eating dinner upstairs. You need a full stomach to fight. The surveillance clearly captured the girl's figure, but despite her hoarsely shouting outside, we paid her no heed. Half an hour later, we had finished our dinner, and the girl, unable to wait any longer, picked up a stone and threw it at the window. But it didn't even leave a scratch. Frustrated, she turned and left. Not long after, Hugo's window opened, and several people stood there. I cracked open a window on the 2nd floor and faintly heard some voices. Mom and Dad, are you sure the Kendall's family still has a lot of supplies? Laurel has been crying at their door for a long time, but no one has come out. Hunter asked. That should be right. Last week I saw Grayson driving a small truck full of parcels back home. No mistake. From last month the Kendall's couple has been continuously buying a lot of stuff, including grains and oil. They even said it was fertilizer. Why would they bring fertilizer back home instead of taking it to the fields? I just happened to pass by their house when I went to dig onions, and oh, it was all food and supplies. Their daughter also came back, her car packed with expensive snacks from the supermarket. They have electricity again. It must be that girl who spilled the beans. Otherwise, given the character of the Kendall's couple, how could they not come out to open the door? What are you talking about, you old hag? The girl cursed loudly. I'm telling you, if it wasn't because you're Hunter's mother, do you think I would tolerate your baseless slander? The rest of the conversation was highly inappropriate, and I stopped listening as it wouldn't pass moderation. The argument grew louder and even attracted 2 zombies, which Hunter, annoyed, dealt with a slap each. TSK, hitting his own mother. Hunter isn't afraid of being struck by lightning. However, the noise did die down, and the zombies had already climbed over Hugo's low courtyard wall. We were almost inside the house. In my heart, I was silently urging, bite him to death, eat him, and then I won't have to live in constant fear. Unfortunately, at the last second, a fruit knife was thrust straight out of the window, stabbing right through the zombie's eye. It was Blondie. And then his 2 minions also came out, armed with a hoe and a shovel, and killed the other zombie. My mother saw this, gasped softly, and couldn't bear to watch anymore. Even though I knew these were zombies, they still looked human, and seeing how efficiently Blondie and his crew took them down, I couldn't help but feel a sinking feeling in my heart. It seems the good die young and the wicked live forever, with their level of combat ability. How could I ever compete with them? Meanwhile, Hunter strutted out confidently, stepping on the courtyard wall and shouting to us, Grayson, I know you're home, and I mean no harm, no, within miles. Your place is the only one with electricity and food. You wouldn't want to see us starve, right? With that, he reached towards his waist and placed something on the wall. The man had actually brought back a gun, and to prove his point, he fired it into the air. How about that, Grayson? I put quite some effort into this. Not bad, huh? We're all neighbors here. I don't want to spill blood, so give me 10 minutes to open the door and let me in, or it won't be so polite when I let myself in. As soon as he finished speaking, Blondie drove their car to the base of the courtyard wall, and his 2 followers brought out an aluminum ladder wrapped in layers of cardboard. Hunter climbed onto the roof of the car, looking proudly over the courtyard, and commented, Oh, you've even planted some vegetables. Grayson, don't be scared. I've cut countless power grids in Southeast Asia. We're experienced in this. Old Mrs. Hugo also came out to encourage. Right, son, hurry and cut it. Why should they indulge while we barely have any rice left to cook? The young girl climbed onto the car roof and cooed at Hunter. Hunter, if they have electricity, they must have hot water. Everyone here hasn't bathed in a long time and stink. Hurry, cut the line so they can have a decent shower. Inside the house, we were frantic. Hunter had been planning to wrap the ladder these past few days. No wonder he wasn't in a rush even though he had a gun. I had thought that since they had a ladder and we had pitchforks, if they dared to cut it, we would strike them down. If worst comes to worst, I still had Molotov cocktails, though I hadn't tested them and was unsure. But now, we might be shot like sieves the moment we showed our heads. What should we do, Kendall? Are we really going to hand over the house just like that? This is the lifelong effort of your father and me. I can't bear to let it go. My mom cried. I'm afraid even if we willingly give up the house, he won't spare us. He's a thankless wretch. He abuses even his parents who treated him like an emperor. He won't let us off easy. My dad took a deep breath. If it comes down to it, we'll fight to the death. It's either them or us now. Tears and sobs. My mom said, as long as we're together. Even if we die, we won't be alone on the road. Mom and Dad, what are you talking about? Things haven't gotten that bad yet. Let me think. Outside, due to Hunter's loud shouting, a few more zombies were drawn to the scene, but without exception, they were all killed by the 3 blonde men. My location is too remote. It would be great if more zombies could show up. Suddenly, an idea struck me, and I asked my mom to bring over the raw meat and the leftovers from tonight's dinner from the fridge. Then I turned on the surveillance speaker and microphone and said to Hunter, don't be rash, let's talk this through. The electric fence is working fine. Cutting it won't give you peace of mind if you decide to move in. You can have the house if you want it. It's just been renovated and it's still missing some small items. I'm not comfortable living here anyway. Hunter laughed even more wildly, always so sensible. It wasn't for nothing that I followed and protected you every day when you were in school. But why should I believe that you'd just hand over the house to me? Protected me. It was clear you had ulterior motives. And now you want my house. Dream on. Look, I'm just a woman. And both my parents are ill. We have no ability to resist. What's there to worry about? Let's do this. I'll cut the power to the electric fence. Could you give me a little more time to gather some medicine for my parents' blood pressure? Our family doesn't have much, but we do have some meat stored. I'll lower it from the window for you guys to eat first. Speaking of which, I lowered the meat from the window using the cotton thread my mom uses for sewing. The electricity has been out for so many days. Hugo must have finished all his stored meat by now. Seeing the meat I lowered, Mrs. Jean couldn't help but come over to take some first, all smiles. Oh my, I always said the old Kendall's family isn't short of good stuff. My dear son, let's do some meat for dinner tonight. Oh dear, we're out of gas at home. Old man, come start the fire. Hunter didn't care about the meat. He gestured to the blonde-haired man to check the electric fence. And after confirming the power was cut, he looked up and spoke to me as if granting a favor. 20 minutes, don't take any food or drinks with you. Seeing this, I quickly promised to only take my parents' blood pressure medicine and a few clothes, nothing else. I also dropped down some snacks and beer, peanuts, dried little fish, dried squid, all sold loosely and each bag weighing over a pound, which I bought for snacking while watching dramas. After stabilizing Hunter, I moved to the window facing the orchard and dumped all of today's leftovers out. My parents didn't understand what I was doing, only asking me if it was time to pack up. No need to pack, he can't even get into our yard. Trust me, Mom and Dad. I returned to the surveillance monitor and saw Hunter had already gone back into Hugo's yard. It seems they had observed over the past few days that not many zombies appeared in this area, and the few that usually roamed around had been killed by them. So they boldly set up a table in the yard and started drinking. A young girl sat on Hunter's lap, pouring him wine while joking with the other 3. The world truly has gone downhill. Seeing this, I dropped 2 more bottles of vodka for them. They chatted and drank merrily, even setting up a fire to keep warm. The atmosphere was lively, and their talk became unguarded. I overheard them saying that they had initially planned to target the survivors' university, but were too slow and got beaten to it. The other party had guns, and although reluctant to give up, Hunter sneaked in and stole a gun to bring back. Hearing from his own parents that my family had stored plenty of good things, he took a risk and came back, managing to rob quite a few supplies with the gun in hand. Now, these brothers had shared hardships and riches alike. The only downside was having just one woman with them wasn't enough. Now with goods in hand, Although they couldn't become kings overnight, isn't it enough to be the emperor of your own little realm? If so, you might as well have a whole palace with many courtyards. They burst into laughter, which made the young girl act coquettishly and throw a tantrum again, but I always felt his gaze on me. I'll let you daydream all you want today. Sure enough, it got dark in just a few minutes, and even Hunter, who was enjoying his drink, realized something was off. Countless feral cats had surrounded Hugo's yard. Not only were these cats unusually large, but their eyes were eerily white, showing no pupils at all. Where did all these cats come from? When it gets dark, shouldn't cats' eyes glow? Why can't I see anything in these cats' eyes? The young girl was so frightened that she hid behind Hunter, her face pale. Hunter instantly realized it was a trap I had set. He quickly threw the snacks from the table far away, and the feral cats rushed after them. Hunter casually grabbed a brightly burning stick from the fire for light and called for his friends to come and cut the electric fence. At that moment, I fiercely dumped several buckets of blood and partially thawed meat from the upstairs window, drenching them thoroughly and making them shiver from the cold. Go on, cut it, see if you aren't just a wooden doll unaffected by electricity. My electric fence is specially charged with high voltage, only those unafraid of death would dare cut it. I shouted loudly. Hunter hesitated after all, turning back and gesturing for the young girl to do the cutting. The girl was hesitant. Hunter, I'm scared. I've never cut before, and I don't have the strength. I can't do it well. Before she could finish, Hunter slapped her. Just cut it. Stop the nonsense. The girl reluctantly climbed the ladder, and just as I poured another bucket of blood, her scream echoed. Hunter couldn't stand it anymore and turned back to go inside the house to fetch 2 plastic bags to cover his hands. He smirked at me triumphantly. Go ahead, splash more if you can. Let's see how much more you have to splash. I indeed had no more blood to splash. My mom had wanted to buy a fridge with a quick thaw feature which my dad had mockingly deemed useless. Now, it turned out that mom was always right. I had used up all the meat in the fridge's fresh-keeping layer tonight. But I had achieved my goal. No need to splash anymore, I said, smiling even more smugly than Hunter. Turn around and look around, dear uncle, see whether your life is more important, or cutting through my little electric fence. Hunter turned around and saw a dense crowd of zombies approaching him. Indeed, the wild cats were just a setup. What I was waiting for was this moment when the zombies besieged the city. I had already been clever when I started to lower the frozen meat. Tearing a large hole in the plastic bag and lowering it very slowly, the blood had already dripped everywhere. The wild cats, which I had been feeding these past few days, were initially just to lead the zombies away. Later, these cats almost guarded downstairs every day, so I purposefully gave Hunter those snacks, like dried small fish with a strong smell. Cats, with their sensitive noses, would surely follow the scent. Hunter realized this and threw the snacks out towards the village, our house. Backed by the mountains, where people habitually do not throw trash behind their own homes but towards the open area in front, as the cats ran off and fought over the small fish, the noise from so many cats fighting, especially since they had mutated. After reading an article on NewsDog, I had been paying close attention to the animals around. After the first night the wild cat helped me lead away the zombies, I noticed that the cat had grown bigger, not only taller and stronger, but it also fought more fiercely. By then, I knew this cat had been infected with the zombie virus, whether it was scratched by a zombie or had eaten the rotten flesh of a zombie. Once one cat mutated, the whole group mutated, and their combat power surged impressively. The noise from the fighting alone was not enough to attract so many zombies. So I added several more buckets of blood, the thick smell of blood, in addition to deliberately provoking Hunter and causing him to speak loudly. They were practically asking for trouble by lighting a fire in the yard. Of course the zombies would come after them. I had the advantage of being in a high-rise. He did not. I was curious to see how they would handle the situation and whether they could fend off the horde of zombies. I closed the window and watched the spectacle unfold, observing a group of people as they fought off the zombies while retreating into the courtyard. At that moment, Hugo and his wife came out with some stewed meat to call their obedient son for dinner. Upon seeing the swarm of zombies, both were petrified, standing frozen in shock. Hunter, seeing his way home blocked by his parents, didn't think twice before dragging his elderly parents out. The stewed meat scattered all over the ground as he hurried inside. Blondie and 2 others quickly followed him in, and then the door slammed shut with a heavy thud. Outside, Hugo and his wife, still in shock, along with a young girl who was a step too slow, panicked and began banging on the door. Open the door, son, your dad and I haven't gotten inside yet. Hurry up and open the door. Hunter, don't leave me behind. You promised I'd be your favorite. The cries from Hugo's yard didn't last long before the zombies devoured the 3 of them. The gruesome scene illuminated by the firelight, was horrifying, and I couldn't help but run to the bathroom to throw up, but maybe it was for the best. If my longtime neighbors had turned into zombies, I'm not sure I could have brought myself to fight them. The zombie horde was attacking Hugo, but Hunter, I couldn't let him go. I had to deal with him tonight, otherwise, once he recovered, it would be our family who would suffer. Up on the third floor, my parents had already brought up 2 large barrels of liquor, and my dad had placed the water inlet hose of his car wash machine into a barrel. Without hesitation, I plugged in the car wash machine, and high-proof alcohol sprayed from the pressure washer onto the group of zombies around Hugo. Now, a new problem arose. I wasn't sure if the smell of the alcohol would affect the zombies' sense of smell. I only knew that the noise from the car wash machine had already drawn the attention of the zombie horde. They collectively looked up at the building. I haven't seen such order even when I was doing military stunts in university. Taking a cue, I grabbed a middle school English language teaching boombox with a card insert, turned the volume up to the maximum, tied a plastic bag as a makeshift parachute, and tossed it lightly, landing it perfectly on Hugo's rooftop. The sound from the small speaker indeed diverted the zombies' attention back to Hugo. I then picked up a water scoop and splashed out all the liquor until both barrels were empty. Returning to the second floor, as I wondered how long Hugo's old doors and windows would hold up, Hunter opened a side window, threw someone out, and quickly closed it again. It was one of his nameless henchmen, whose throat had been slit, staining a large area of the floor with blood. I watched as he struggled to crawl outside, but unfortunately, there were too many zombies. A clang sound came as another person was thrown out of a different window. The zombies were drawn to both sides, and Hunter, along with Blondie, shirtless, rushed out of the house, apparently with no time to change their blood-stained clothes. "Damn it, we have a long day ahead," he said as he dove into the car, ready to escape. I couldn't let him get away. That was the only thought in my mind. Hunter could even use his parents as scapegoats, and since I had already made an enemy of him tonight, I absolutely couldn't let him escape. Later, everything seemed a bit hazy. My only thought was that Hunter must not escape alive. My hand touched a cold bottle. Oh, it was a Molotov cocktail I had made. Where's the lighter? I remembered I had placed it on the windowsill. Oh, here it is. I lit the Molotov cocktail and threw it at Hunter's car roof. The glass bottle shattered on impact, and the flames blazed up, thankfully not too far from where I had sprayed the liquor on their car earlier. It caught fire quickly. Not long after, with a loud bang, the car exploded. Turning around, I saw that Dad had also set the group of zombies on fire. It turned out that zombies really don't feel pain, even as their bodies were scorched black. They steadfastly searched around Hugo for the source of the sound emitting from a small speaker. Despite using 2 large barrels of high-proof alcohol, the fire didn't last long as the alcohol evaporated quickly. We extinguished the remaining flames with a high-pressure water hose from the 3rd floor. And by the time the fire was completely out, we could see the sunrise. A new day, a new year had arrived, and the biggest threat beside me had been eliminated. Ever since the apocalypse began, I've been terrified. How was I, a physically weak woman, supposed to protect my parents from the savage zombies and ensure our survival until the nation was restored? I wasn't sure, and I was scared. So scared that I needed sleeping pills to sleep every night. So scared that I would hide under the covers and cry alone, but I always pretended to be nonchalant in front of my parents. No, I'm no longer afraid. If anyone or any zombie tries to harm my family again, I won't hesitate. After the battle, we'd lost 2 large barrels of high-proof alcohol, some meat, and 3 large bags of snacks. The surveillance near Hugo and the electric grid on that wall were damaged by the fire, but Dad has fixed them, and they're back in operation. Casualty report. The enemy was completely wiped out. We had no casualties. It was a joyous occasion as it coincided with New Year's Day. I playfully asked Mom to cook something delicious. Since zombies couldn't enter and there were no other survivors around, we could eat well and then catch up on some much-needed sleep. Mom happily agreed, while Dad went to the balcony, trembling as he pulled out a cigarette and called me over. "Kendall, don't put on a brave front. If you're scared, just cry it out. Like when you were little, why don't you cry on Daddy's shoulder? I really regret sending you to boarding school when you were so young. If I hadn't been so stubborn and just kept my job at the factory, you wouldn't have had to suffer with me in the countryside." Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably, and I sobbed on his shoulder just like I did when I felt wronged in kindergarten. I shared with him my grievances and fears, telling him that I was more afraid of losing them than being killed by zombies, so I have no regrets about what I did last night, and I told him that I'm no longer afraid. We need to keep living well together until the end of these dark times. Spin-off episode 1. Unknowingly. It had been 5 months since our family moved to the survivors' base. Standing up, I looked down at the bustling crowd below, still feeling a sense of unreality. Closing my eyes, all I could see were the times at home when we scrimped and saved, carefully rationing our food, After resolving the threat named Hunter, our family indeed had a worry-free period, but our food reserves were depleted by the third year of the apocalypse. Fortunately, our chickens kept laying eggs, luckily. We didn't eat much flour-based food, so the stockpiled flour was just enough to feed the chickens. My parents made full use of their skills, setting up several greenhouses in the yard to grow vegetables. However, since we had used up all the bought seeds and the germination rate of our own seeds had drastically decreased, we had to be careful with our vegetable consumption. Thankfully, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and corn still maintained their yield. 4 or 5 of our solar panels were also damaged, which made electricity usage tight. As for supplies, we were not short of daily necessities or water, but food was really becoming an issue. From the second year of the apocalypse, the weather began to worsen, reaching as high as 45 degrees Celsius in summer and dropping to minus 10 degrees Celsius in winter. Even with snowfall, summer was manageable. We could just move to the basement. Winter was truly harsh. As such, low temperatures were very rare in our region, and we had to risk turning on the air conditioning. Fortunately, our air conditioner's external unit was installed in the basement, where the sound of the wind and snow covered the noise from the unit. What's worse is the long-term lack of communication with outsiders and the inability to receive any external information. Our family's mindset underwent a significant transformation when the apocalypse first struck. We were filled with confidence, believing that the nation would swiftly resolve the crisis. Every morning, we would check for any sign of cell service restoration, and I'd use binoculars from the 3rd floor to see if any vehicles were still passing on the main road. However, as days turned into weeks, our once unwavering belief began to falter, eventually leading to complete disillusionment. I realized that this state of despair was not right, but felt powerless to change anything. Ultimately, as long as the zombies are not eradicated, we cannot return to our former lives. All I could do was dig out the computer and repeatedly watch downloaded TV shows with my parents to distract ourselves. Fortunately, at that time, the government began to fight back. Survival bases were established in several coastal cities. They even managed to temporarily restore mobile signals for brief periods, alerting us several times about impending zombie hordes. During these brief periods of signal restoration, we managed to make contact with the rescue team. The rescue team informed us that the survival bases already built were too far from us and advised against trying to reach them. A new survival base was being planned in a city not far from us. They told us to hold on for a year, after which it would be operational. Every 3 months, they would drop supplies by helicopter. Learning that things were moving in a positive direction, my parents and I shook off the gloom of food scarcity and regained our spirits. 9 months later, we received another call from Officer Jackson of the rescue team. He informed us that a massive zombie horde had been detected to our north. Calculations showed that our family's orchard and villa lay directly in the horde's path, and they would soon reach our village. The good news was that the new survival base was now operational, and a helicopter would soon arrive to evacuate us. Then I watched as a swarm of helicopters arrived, bringing a large contingent of soldiers who buried countless landmines and explosives in our orchard and villa. Officer Jackson explained that the scale of this zombie horde was too large. Their beast-like instincts had detected living humans to the south. If left unchecked, the newly built survival base would surely be trampled into ruins by the relentless zombies, negating all the nation's previous efforts. Thus, the only option was to lay a heavy minefield in the horde's path, to reduce the number of zombies as much as possible, even if they couldn't be completely eliminated. My parents, with tears in their eyes, firmly nodded their agreement when they heard that our home would be destroyed. I raised my camera and took the first family photo since the apocalypse began in front of our villa. Today, the house that sheltered us for 4 years would cease to exist. To say there was no sense of loss would be a lie, as the toughest months since the apocalypse began were spent here. Once the landmines were in place, we evacuated with the soldiers. Just after boarding the helicopter, I saw the zombie horde approaching, countless zombies, densely packed and staggering toward the back mountain. I had experienced several zombie hordes before, but we had never evacuated, due to the geographical advantage and confidence in the villa personally supervised by my father. Plus the smaller scale of previous hordes. From high above, the zombie horde looked like a plague of locusts, leaving barren devastation in its wake. Such a massive horde could overwhelm even the sturdiest of structures. As soon as the zombies entered the range of the back mountain, they were blown apart by the mines. The explosions relentless, audible even through headphones. Dust filled the air and the smell of gunpowder stunned the eyes. Yet the zombies fearlessly continued their relentless advance. The situation was as chilling as warriors heading to battle in the age of cold weapons. Fortunately, the hard work of one afternoon was not in vain. The scale of the zombie horde had been greatly reduced due to the explosion. However, the size was still considerable. So many mines and bombs only managed to reduce the number of zombies by 1/5. I met with my parents, and we were all so shocked that we were at a loss for words. Seeing our somber mood, a young soldier accompanying us started chatting with us to lighten the atmosphere. The young soldier looked youthful, his skin tanned dark by the sun, yet his facial features were sharp and well-defined, with bold brows and bright eyes. But once he spoke, one could tell his age was much greater than his appearance suggested. His voice through the earpiece was deep, resonant, and magnetic. Perhaps it was the hero filter. But I found it oddly comforting. Don't worry, our comrades ahead are already planting mines, and there are bombers on standby at the survival base. Our combat department has already calculated the path of the zombie horde and the number of mines needed. We absolutely won't let these zombies reach the survival base. I swear on my honor as a soldier, I will ensure the safety of our people, he said, saluting us. My parents and I couldn't help but laugh at this. Explaining to him that we weren't scared or worried, it was just that it was our first time witnessing such a scene and it was quite shocking. Once the conversation started, it couldn't be stopped. My parents, having hardly seen any living people recently, lost all their initial reserve, from asking where the young brother was from to what breed his family dog was, even after disembarking from the helicopter. The conversation didn't cease. I clearly saw the young soldier's relieved expression as he bid us goodbye. After arriving at the survival base, life became busy. The survival base had just been established, and besides our family, there were only a dozen other families, all military dependents. My parents happily resumed their farming life. Currently, at the entire survival base, only they were true farmers. The soldiers might manage to plant mines well, but farming was a tough task for them, fortunately. The base was equipped with various agricultural vehicles and tools, and with a group of soldiers helping, my parents weren't too burdened. I took on the role of a guide at the base, responsible for introducing newcomers to the basic situation of the base. Despite being busy, it was very reassuring. I later met that young soldier, Leah, several more times. He was a squad leader in the rescue team. During one casual conversation, I learned that the newshound didn't make it to the end. Someone had exposed his real identity and looted his supplies. He didn't die at the hands of zombies but was driven to suicide by jumping off a building by his own compatriots. The survivors' university was also rescued by the military. According to Leah, when they arrived at the university, it had turned into a living hell. Young men were chained and forced to farm and raise pigs, and the elderly were simply pushed outside to fend for themselves. Even the younger children had to work, and any disobedience was met with beating. As for the women, their status was even worse, barely clothed. The military executed the criminals in front of everyone and also sent psychologists to provide therapy. However, the memories of what had happened could never be erased. In the face of desperation, people struggle to survive, but once safety is assured, feelings of shame prevail. Especially once it is confirmed that their family members are safe, many still choose to end their lives. After hearing this, I felt down for several days. Leah specifically came to comfort me, sharing stories of a supermarket owner he met during a mission who selflessly helped his neighbors. Several families helped each other and supported one another through tough times. He also told me about a pregnant woman who, by chance, saved a doctor. Not only did the doctor successfully help her deliver her child, but he also saved her mother who suffered from high blood pressure. Perhaps this is just human nature. In harsh conditions, there's no time to dwell on sorrow. As long as I'm doing slightly better than others, I start to worry about their situations, unable to bear even a hint of human suffering. I looked at Leah, noticing the dark circles under his eyes, and felt a pang of guilt. They were already tired from their mission, and yet he came to comfort me. I patted his shoulder, signaling that I understood and would pull myself together, and then told him to go rest. But Leah didn't move, looking as if he had something to say. I spoke before him, bringing up how we don't know when the apocalypse will end and reminding him to be cautious on his missions to change the subject. Leah gave me a wry smile, said goodnight, and then turned to leave. As soon as he left, my smile fell. I knew what he was about to say. They had received orders to move to a new survival base next week. Once they left, they wouldn't return until the apocalypse was over, but I couldn't go with him. My parents had finally settled down. I couldn't drag them around anymore. No one can be sure of the unknown future. I wasn't sure if I could wait for him to return alive, and neither could he. If that's the case, why delay each other? When I got home, I unexpectedly found my shameless ex-boyfriend having a cozy chat over tea with my dad. Gregory was my high school classmate and a manager in one department of my company, though we worked in different departments. He joined the company 3 years after me, and not long after, their department's manager retired. Despite being new, Gregory was young, ambitious, good-looking, and skilled, which quickly led to his promotion. Our relationship started simply because we were of similar age and from the same place. We kept our relationship secret. It was brief and, despite being in different departments, office romances were somewhat taboo. especially since we were both managers in key departments. Gregory planned to stay at the company for 2 more years to save enough for a house down payment before switching jobs, and then we could openly be together. But before we could even hold hands publicly, I returned from a business trip to find out he had started dating the boss's daughter. I wondered if there was some misunderstanding. We were both so busy with work trips, I barely had time to reply to messages, let alone date the boss's daughter. When I reached his office, his assistant told me he wasn't in today. I called him, and the boss's daughter answered. The boss's daughter had graduated this year and was supposed to intern in my department. However, after visiting the company and somehow noticing Gregory, she insisted on being transferred to his department. Despite initially disagreeing due to concerns over his daughter's workload, the boss eventually gave in to her demands. I tried to keep my voice neutral. Isn't Manager Sue here? I brought back gifts for everyone from my trip and was checking on him since he's not in the office. Oh, it's nothing. We just came back from Hong Kong and are too tired to work today. And about the stuff you left with Gregory, please find time to take them back. I find it awkward to use someone else's things. Besides, since you and Gregory didn't really take your relationship to a substantial level, his being with me shouldn't really hurt you. With each word she said, my heart sank a little more. I forced myself to stay calm. It's just some kitchenware. Please, feel free to throw it away. Additionally, please relay a message to Manager Sue for me, needing a woman to break up for him. I really have no respect for him. I used to go out of my way to prepare meals for him because I knew he often worked overtime and would get stomach aches if he didn't eat properly. I would cook at his place during my lunch breaks when I wasn't too busy, then head back to work. Looking back, it really wasn't worth it. Eventually, it naturally led to my dismissal. After we broke up, I was indeed heartbroken and in a slump for a while, but I gradually came to terms with it. Then, as the apocalypse arrived, I didn't even have the time to think about it. I couldn't believe that jerk had the audacity to show up in front of me again. The first thing I said to him was, "How are you still not dead, you jerk?" That really startled my parents, and my dad even scolded me. "Kendall, where do you get off talking to guests like that? Go outside and think about what you've done." Wow, he was so mad he didn't even use my nickname. I just turned around and left. As I was leaving, I said, "This is the ex-boyfriend who ditched me to be with the big boss's daughter." Is there something wrong with what I said? Indeed. The next second, Gregory was also kicked out by my dad. I crossed my arms and waited for him at the door. "Speak if you have something to say, fart if you need to." Gregory started speaking in a way that just made you want to hit him. "Kendall, are you in a bad mood today? You seem very irritable." Hey, don't go. I have something serious to talk about." I stopped in my tracks. "One more useless word and I'll tie you up and throw you outside for the zombies." "Kendall, I'm sorry. I wronged you back then. I don't want to struggle anymore. It's too exhausting, constantly traveling and socializing day and night. I'm really tired, so I took a shortcut. I came here today to firstly apologize, and secondly to persuade you. You might not see it, but people close to us know you're stubborn and won't turn back until you hit a wall, and you have a strong sense of responsibility." "Cut the crap," I snapped. "Leah is really a good person. He also saved me. I stayed at another base for half a year, and when I heard they needed people here, I came to help." I didn't expect to run into him again. The other day I saw you two having lunch together in the cafeteria, and the way he looked at you was just like how I used to look at you. Gregory stepped forward, looked me in the eyes, and said earnestly, "Kendall, I was the one who made mistakes back then, not you. Don't let one setback hold you back forever. Both you and Leah are good people. You deserve his love, and he is worthy of you. Leah is not like me. I'm a hypocrite, but he is a real man. You do have some self-awareness." "I can't continue this conversation today. I get your point. You've said your piece. Now you better go." I waved him off and turned to walk away. It seems like he might have a point. Could it really be that, as Kendall, I'm doomed only to meet jerks? I refuse to believe that. I lost the bet last time, but this time, I'm betting on myself to win. I caught up to Leah, who hadn't gone far, panting, and asked him, "What were you about to say just now?" Leah, still not quite catching on, instinctively responded, "Would you like to be with me? Wait for me for a few years? I'm willing." In the darkness, I could clearly see Leah's bright white teeth beneath her dark skin, her smile so dazzling it almost blinded me. I was finally able to hold hands with the one I love in front of everyone. After Leah left, life at the base gradually got back on track, and good news kept coming. We had established 7 survival bases inland. Significant breakthroughs had also been made in the development of a vaccine. Finally, in August of the 7th year of the apocalypse, I saw on TV that the national leader officially announced that our country had overcome the disaster. The door lock turned, and Leah walked in, with tears in my eyes. I threw myself into his arms. The apocalypse was over, and it was time for us to start anew.